Okay, I'm on my phone now. Well, I'm on my computer, so you might hear my clicking and stuff, but I'm on my phone. So now it should be not glitched. That's annoying. I was like, yeah, it's awesome. They added it so that you can um do it from your computer. That's great. And then I'm like trying to use it and it's just like it doesn't work, which is really funny. Really, really funny. Okay. All right, but now I can definitely be heard. So you thought you were deaf? Well, I mean, you might be. But I guess if you can hear now, then probably not. Might have to consult with a deaf person, and ask them what their experience is like. If yours is similar. That was really stupid. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just yapping. Um. Yeah. Okay. So you guys about to be like, oh my god! But I took a nap and then I woke up and I like took a long nap and so then like my I'm gonna just like be up, but I need to edit a video. But like I'm just kind of like waking up so I can chat with you guys while I'm doing that. But before I go hop into editing, um, I have a drink and that's that. I can't refresh my mentions on Twitter. It just like doesn't work. You sound kind of tired. I'm not tired, but I do have like a tired voice, but because I don't know, like I'm like congested. Um Talk about your wrist. Well, I'll be brief because talk about other stuff, but I already pretty much said everything. Yeah, I hurt my wrist sparring Sapnap. It's like it feels a lot better. I think it'll be better in a day or two probably. Yeah, I just was not punching correctly and didn't realize, and then afterwards it just hurt. That's it. That's what happened. So it's bruised, but that's it. Mm, 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 mm. Learn how to punch then. Well, now I know. Now I know. Is your nose still bruised? Not really. I mean, I don't think there's anything on it anymore. I mean, it was a small like bruise, but the fact that you didn't ask your mom, who's a nurse, about it is insane. I mean, I didn't. I honestly, I just didn't feel the need to. I mean, I heard it and I was pretty confident, like what I did. I, felt it and felt around my wrist and with my other hand and was like, yeah, it's not like pressure. Like I don't like if I'm pressing on it, it doesn't hurt. Um, it's like when I'm moving it, you know, left and right, I'll give it a couple hours and see. After a couple hours, it still hurt. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna order like a splint. So I ordered like a wrist support splint. I was like, I'm just gonna wear it for a day. If it's not like better, if it doesn't feel better in the morning, then I'll go to the doctor. But in the morning, I mean, it wasn't better, but it was like better than it. It was like it was better than before. And I was like, okay, so it's just like I just like I just hurt my wrist. Like I didn't like fracture it or anything. I was pretty confident, and so I was like, all right, well, I'll just keep wearing it and see what happens. And if it gets worse or if it hurts, then I'll go to the doctor. But it's just been getting better every day, so that's why. That makes sense. My mic keeps cutting out. Well, I don't know how to fix that. My mic's been fine. Adjust settings. I mean, there's not really. I don't see any settings. Yeah, I mean that's. I don't think there's any settings. So sorry. Mm, 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 mm. Why don't you use your dream as live chat anymore? Does that even work? Is that just like left up? I forgot. I'm looking at it now. Oh, yeah, it is up. I don't know if it like works. Does it work? I forgot about this. Can someone chat on it and I'll see if it works. Do I need to log in? Uh, yeah, I don't see any chat. Oh, okay, I see chats. Wait, it works. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll use that. If you want to chat, go to dreamislive.com and chat. I'll see if it starts like having problems, then I won't, but like that's kind of better actually. Dreamislive.com and just you can just sign in with like Google or whatever and then or Twitter. I don't know if it works, but if there's problems then tell me and I won't use it. But otherwise this is nice. This is better. I don't have to keep refreshing my like Twitter timeline over and over again and like not I'm missing stuff and it's in mentions and you guys have to put tweets and whatever. So dreamislive.com, DREAM is live.com. Anyway, have you seen Sabrina Carpenter in Fortnite? Yes, I have. I haven't played it or anything, but I did see it. I did see it. Can you tell us a bit about what you're editing currently? No. What's the congestion from? Hope you aren't feeling sick. I don't know. I don't feel sick, but like why wasn't Bad Boy Halo in Zero Hunters? Because we recorded it when he was doing a like a long stream. Unfortunately. Um why are your fingers the same length? They're not. They just look like that if I like scrunch my fingers up. Uh on the application doc, it asks for folks that use Adobe products. There are loads of good editors that use other apps and software. You're considering their body of work as much as the software. I'll be honest, I'm pretty much just looking for people with Premiere because that's what I use and George uses and everyone else uses. I mean, I also have edited in Final Cut and I have edited in Sony Vegas and I have edited in other programs. Because I have I have a wide variety of experience. But for me, it'd be if I want to be able to touch up projects, like as an example, if I want to have things still have my like touch on it, then I need to be able to quickly hop in and like edit it. So um unfortunately, I'm pretty much just looking for people that are able to use Premiere um for that because otherwise it's hard for me to or if they could convert, I'm sure there's probably ways where you can have a project converted, like where you can edit in something and then very quickly like convert it to Premiere or something, then I'm sure that's possible. But they'd have to figure that out. So, but yeah, that's why. Obviously, whether or not you edit in Premiere, you can be a good editor. But it's just you know the the ecosystem that I'm in. We can talk about technology. That's what I was tweeting about because I was replying to people on Twitter. Open your private. No, no, stay out. How did you learn so much about AI? I mean, I've done a lot of general like research into AI, I guess, in general, but also like machine learning, which is, I mean, I guess most AI models are machine learning. Machine learning's been around for literally forever. Like we've done like machine learning anti-cheats in Minecraft and, like 2017 or whatever, which is related, which is adjacent to the current like AI models. Just like obviously we have more there's a lot more advanced equipment and also more advanced like processes, I guess, of how it works. But it's still like very similar. But at the same time, um, it's also just interest in reading about it. And there's some like as an example for fusion, there's some uh, AI related processes, like detect, being able to look at an image and detect like body parts, where body parts are. And that's machine learning, which is also just what most people call AI. Even though there's a kind of a umbrella, I guess, like there's LLMs, which is like ChatGPT, but then there's also other uh, AI things that people call AI that are different. Um, but yeah, I'm interested in it, and it's cool, and it's like, the technological advancement that we're kind of going through, I guess, right now. So I think it was just, I like learning about tech. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, guys, I don't know how to like, um I have to like, what's it called? Figure out what my like account is on the site and stuff. So mm, either, I don't know if Callahan's around or not. I'll message him though. Yo. What industry field do you think AI shouldn't be involved in? That's an interesting question. I feel like it really depends like what you mean, I guess. Uh I feel like AI is, again, using it as like a general term, like there's a lot of things people are like lumping into AI. Like obviously AI means artificial intelligence, but like what do you mean by that, like someone, like you said, art design. Like I think there's a lot of machine learning tools that have been used in art, since the beginning of time, right? I think it's different having an image generated off of someone's like prior work or something. But like if you're using paint, and you're using like the fill tool, or you're using the magic wand, or you're using other tools like that, you're using like kind of mini baby AI, versus, whether or not you're using fully, completely, generative AI. And then at the same time, obviously, there's been tools even around in like Photoshop for 6 years ago, or 5 years ago or whatever, where it's like content aware fill or whatever, and that's uh, different. So I think it's a nuanced conversation. I'm just reading from Twitter. I can fix up the site for the future, if we want to use it for anything. But it's cool to check it out. Uh, Let me scroll through and see. How did you film Zero Hunters? I mean, I posted on DreamXD kind of how it was filmed. Is your rebrand going to involve more tech? I mean, it's not about tech. It's a rebrand. Um, Refreshing Twitter notifications. I do fear there's going to be more bad from this than good. The death of intellectualism and human creativity, and a tool for misinformation. And I'm not sure what you mean by the last part, but yeah, I think uh, the entire conversation surrounding AI is really interesting. I think that it's kind of complex and nuanced in a lot of ways that make it hard to talk about without making somebody upset. Especially when you're talking about people's like work. Um, I've had the thought for a really long time that well, first of all, I expressed this a long time ago, but we need like a universal basic income, because I think that we're going to see a lot of big shift in jobs. I mean, I've said this for, I don't know, the last, I think since Andrew Yang ran in like 16 or something. But like I think that we the job space technology is evolving so quickly, and obviously that's going to impact jobs, and that is the reason it's very nuanced, because obviously if you're talking about a technology that's going to potentially impact somebody's like livelihood, then it's kind of complicated to speak about it. But in terms of I forgot exactly what you said, but in terms of generally, I think that overall, especially as it evolves, that AI will be like a really, really, really like good thing for everybody. I think it's a like having intel. It's like having a calculator, kind of in a way. Like before having a calculator, um, people like I guess the what you said about like it being the what's it called like intelligent like people are less intelligent. Like, are you less intelligent because you can use a because we have access to a calculator, or as an example, like Google? A lot of people would argue yes, but I think the answer is no. Like, obviously, the fact that we have access to Google makes us all way more intelligent because we're able to have access to information without having to, you know, have go to a library and look search through books or um, you know, uh, whatever else. Um, I think there's a lot of. I think I have a lot. My thoughts are obviously based on like tons of my experiences with technology and whatever. So I think if there's more like specific questions, might make it easier for me to direct my or like better explain my thoughts. Um, but yeah, it's definitely not simple. It's very nuanced and it's a complex like topic generally. And I think that until things are more established, how do you feel about people on TikTok saying AI could help us live on Mars and other planets? It's crazy. I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't seen that at all, but I do think that will happen for sure. I think I think that I think that it'd be like as an example saying like okay, computers will help us live on Mars, and it's like that's not a crazy thing to say, right? Because obviously, well, computers can't hurt. So I think it's the same thing with like, do I think it'll be the sole reason or something? Like, no, it won't. But do I think that it will help? I mean, yeah. Isn't everything nuanced to some degree? Yeah, but some things are more nuanced than others, for sure. I do think the whole personalizing chat AI bots to be like a friend therapist is a bit odd. Of all the more recent bits showing up, a good chunk of it is rage bait. But a lot of people I know genuinely talk to their ChatGPT or Gemini AI like they would a real therapist or friend. I mean, it is really interesting. I think in the future it will be like that type of thing will be good, especially as like AI models get more and more like quality data from like let's say actual therapists and stuff. Um, because having like commoditized access to a high quality I don't know, like high quality responses to questions so somebody that especially when if something's trained specifically on like I don't know saying the right things and not saying the wrong things and whatever I don't think that's bad. Obviously, you'd still prefer and want to speak to like an actual therapist, obviously. But if it got to the point where it was good enough then it's better to have like being able to have access for everybody, like having free or very low cost access to certain services is like how is that? It's not a bad thing. Um, yeah, I feel like Chantel said, I feel like it can benefit people who don't have emotional support in their life or don't have the money to pay for actual therapy. Yeah, I think especially as things evolve, it'll get you like better and better. I think the biggest thing is that in my mind, I think that for most things, it's something that will like just raise the floor and the ceiling. So like as an example, like you would think that when autotune came out, right, that you'd be like, oh, singing's over, no one can ever like everyone can sing now, and so like it's ruining singing or or whatever. When in reality, like the best singers are still the best singers because they they can sing. They have to use less autotune or whatever. Or they use autotune more creatively or so on and so forth. But then the worst singers, maybe someone before that couldn't sing at all can can now sing. at least a little bit. And so like it raises the barrier for entry to it is like lower, but still like the best singers, the best singers. I feel like that's the for most industries and stuff. I feel like that's kind of the the same, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, just an analogy, but um, can we ask about the rebrand, or is it kind of useless to ask about? It's useless to ask about. You won't know until the end of this month. I don't think people realize AI and machine learning have been around a lot longer than we thought. It's just recently has become more mainstream. Yeah, I mean, machine learning has been around for a super long time, and even specifically AI, like what you guys would consider AI now. Like my parents took like classes in college, for about AI. And like it has been around a long time. It's just that obviously it's way better than it is, but than it has ever been. But what about AI being bad for the environment? So that's a great question. Again, it's a super nuanced and like complex conversation. Um, I guess my first this is me speaking candidly. My first instinct is that a lot of technology related stuff is bad for the environment. Like as an example, like running Minecraft, on on your computer, like if I'm running Minecraft on like high settings, I have shaders and whatever, and I have a high end GPU and I'm a gamer, um, like that's hurting the environment because the energy consumption that I'm using is way more than what you'd use for even like thousands of light bulbs, or whatever, every 10 minutes or something that I'm using the computer. And that's the same for like a lot of things. So it really comes down to like the kind of trade-off of like what is the trade-off of where the value you're gaining versus the like amount of energy that you're consuming, I guess. Um, and so I think it's an interesting problem because like when you're training like an AI model, like when you're training a big like a chat GPT or something, you're using a lot of energy. But after it's trained and you're using it, you're actually using not much energy, like in the grand scheme of things at all. Like you could use something like your personal usage of ChatGPT as an example. If you go use one of ChatGPT's models or whatever, and you ask it like, I don't know, 100 questions every day. If you go step in your car and drive like 100 feet, you've already used more energy than you used on those 100 questions daily. Um, so it's a complicated question because there is nuance to it, and there's wasteful uses. Like if somebody training an AI model to, I don't know, so someone using so much energy to train an AI model to be like a sex bot or something. Like, okay, is that worth the energy that they spent on that? I mean, no. But if scientists are training an AI model, and even if it's tons of energy, right, tons and tons of energy, but they're using it for like DNA sequences and they solve cancer, like, is that worth it? And it all kind of works the same because it's just essentially predicting predicting a sequence. And so it's just it's a very interesting topic. So, like I think it's the same thing with also certain things when it comes to like jobs as an example. Because like is it when people talk about uh these specific jobs that could be replaced or be lost by because of AI. Like as an example, like if you're like a truck driver, right? Or if your job is related to driving at all, like you're an Uber driver or anything, and it becomes a complicated subject because obviously, automating, like self-driving, obviously is good because it's like as an example, getting in a car accident is one of the leading causes of death in the world, right? And especially in children and in young people and so on. It's like obviously if we could eliminate that, then that's an amazing thing. But at the same time, that's millions of people's lives that they spent learning to drive and having working their job and whatever. So it's a complex subject, and I think that there's kind of two sides of the aisle where there's one side that's like, therefore we should literally halt all AI progress, in like no self-driving, and like this is just an example of one kind of segment, right? But and then there's the other side that's going, no, we should, like, fuck all of them. Who cares? Like, it's advancing. It's advancing the world. Whatever. And I think that there is like a middle ground that people don't, that not enough people talk about, where it's like, okay, guys, we shouldn't. This is my personal opinion, obviously, but we shouldn't halt advancement for the sake of, like, let's say people's jobs, as an example, but we should definitely care about the fact that people will lose jobs and they spent their whole life like training for them, or whatever, and accommodate for that. And so that's why I've been a big fan of having a universal basic income, because then, if you have a universal basic income, especially for, maybe even, especially maybe like even if it's not for everybody, maybe when I'm saying, I guess that doesn't make it universal, but if you're, people, to people that are affected by, or have job loss, or have, their livelihood affected by, by AI. I think it'd be totally fair to have people, that way, everyone is able to uh, uh, advance, or whatever, or try and push through what will be a big adjustment period, because things like this have happened throughout history. um like with, making, even just like machines, or making, cars, and before that, all the horses lost their jobs, right? I mean, that's kind of a stupid analogy, but I mean, it's true. And it's like, but the difference between now and then is that it's so quick, because we have the internet, and you can push something to the world in, like, 0.1 seconds. Then it can have a way bigger impact, um, so it's really interesting. What's universal basic income? So basically, universal basic income is that everyone, essentially, everyone pays taxes, and then some of those taxes go to just paying everyone a default amount of money monthly. Um, so it's like having a basic salary that everyone kind of has. Um, uh, that way, I guess, people, there's no, whatever. Obviously, that's, you don't want to get into politicalness of it, because there's a lot of people that, if you there's people on both sides that get pissy about that, and would say that, oh, well, if you give people money, then the money has less value. They'll just, all of a sudden, you give everyone $1,000, then, McDonald's will just charge $1,000 for a hamburger. And there's a lot of, like, I don't know enough to get into the specifics, but I think that there's um a lot of interesting stuff around it. But laws are also way slower than technology. That's an issue. Yes, that is the biggest thing and most valid criticism that anyone could have related to AI, in my mind. I actually do not. I don't think that the environmental impact is the biggest criticism of AI that has weight. I think it's literally just related to, which, I mean, to be fair, this is something people do agree with, but I think it's more, even more than just with, like, artists. But the intellectual, like, property laws and stuff, and everything surrounding AI, you kind of hasn't, there's like nothing really. I think that it will probably catch up, but right now there's not. Like, yeah, there are, a lot of models that are trained off of just people's, not even just art, but like people's everything. And there's a lot of debate as to, why that's either okay or not okay, or people getting compensated or not compensated, whatever. And it's just that's, to me, that's the biggest problem, is like, it's because it's so quick. Like, a lot of companies are kind of just like done what they want, and then are gonna, it's like ask for forgiveness, not permission, and so I think that to me is the biggest problem. Is that's pretty much every company has done it. They're like, all right, we'll ask for forgiveness in the future. We're just gonna steal everyone's shit now, and then later we're gonna be like, all right, guys, hey, look how awesome this thing is that, we made. So you forgive us, right? And, like, I think that's a very, uh, that's, to me, the biggest problem right now. But I'm just kind of scrolling through, the tweets. Twitter like limits me. They don't let me like I can't like refresh my notifications quickly as I want. Open your private. No. Um, at the end of the day, we made AI. We train AI. Well, I mean, I think that that's very generalized. I think okay, so I guess how many of you know how like an AI like ChatGPT works, right? Because I feel like a lot of people, maybe there's like a basic understanding, right? Um, but like, yes, we technically, yeah, we train AI, and yeah, technically we made it, but at the same time, it's how it works is very like the kind of the point of it, I guess, is it's very like uh self sufficient in a way. Like we don't like as an example, if you go and ask it a question, like we don't program it to answer that question. Like you may ask it, you can go ask it a random question. It's never seen that question before, but it can still answer it. It can still even give you a good answer. It's like, why is that? Right? Like we did not tell it how to answer that question. We did not tell it what that question is. We did not tell it what that question means. We did not tell it what the words mean. We never told it, hey, ocean is this. We never told it, hey, this is this. We didn't, it's not like programmed in the same way that you would program like a Minecraft mod or something where you're like, hey, if someone right clicks with this, then make it do this. So like even though we do make it and train it, uh, it is it's it works a lot differently than most of our like just almost everything else we've ever really done or made. It actually works a lot like us, like in terms of how we think. Like when you think of something, right? When you think of the answer to a question that someone asks you, you're using it's just like neurons in your brain fire, and you're using all of the information you ever in your entire life that you've ever learned, right? Now you might have like a vague recollection of something. Like if I ask you about a very niche thing, like okay, in this, in the movie, in the movie Finding Nemo, who was like a specific, who was the villain's right hand man? Like I don't even know if that exists, but I'm guessing it does. I'm guessing there is a right hand man. Some of you might be able to answer that instantly and be like, "Oh my god, it was this," because you've watched it 100 times, or you know a lot about it. Some of you might be able to guess, or some of you might not know at all. And even if you have seen the movie, maybe you won't remember, right? And so it's kind of like it's and even when you're getting a response to that, I think the biggest reason why, uh, generally speaking, that like large language models, like a ChatGPT for like text, will be beneficial is because it is like commoditized knowledge, because you can get answers to questions and research very quickly, which is generally a good thing. Like, if you have to spend less time, searching for something, and you can actually have, and you can get the resources, quicker, then you're just saving like yourself time to do more with like your life, right? And you're saving, and it gives poor people the ability to do more individually, right? I guess I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent. Okay, so essentially, the basic breakdown of kind of of how ChatGPT works. I'm not going to go into. I'm going to be very general, and it's not going to be 100%, you know, to the letter of law. But essentially, uh, it's just let's just assume that uh, uh, it has okay. I'm trying to think of how I can explain this in the best way. Um, when you ask a question, like if you ask ChatGPT a question, um, it's never seen that exact question that you've asked, but let's just say it's been fed the internet, right? Now it doesn't have the entire internet stored inside of it, because that'd be massive and it would be slow. It'd be like slow and massive. So it's kind of like, when you compress a file, like if you take a file and you compress it, and it makes it so you can't really use it, but it makes the file smaller. So if you just take a file and put it in like a zip, right, it compresses it, and so you can't use the file anymore, but you can transfer it quicker. So if you want to upload it online, or you want to send it to your on a flash drive, or whatever, it's now compressed. So it's kind of like doing that to the entire internet, but really compressing it, So like if you super 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 compress the internet, but if if you compress one of your files, you're not going to lose any data, right? But let's say you were fine with losing some data. You were like, okay, I'm fine with losing 50, a random 50% amount of data, right? You're fine with losing that data. So you had a compressed file where it's like, well, then when you uncompressed it, you only had like parts of your video, right? So you had bits and pieces, right? Um, and this isn't the exact kind of this isn't exactly how it works. There's a lot more nuance to it, but this I'm trying to help you understand why. Like as an example, someone said like, oh, if I ask it a question, it might not get it right, and then it goes, well, how does it get it wrong if it has the entire internet, right? So imagine you compressed like a video, like a dream video, and we took one of my videos and we compressed it to we wanted to compress it to like 10 seconds, right? 10 seconds, that's it. So you take a 40-minute long dream video and we compress it down to only 10 seconds. So that's way smaller, right? It's 10 seconds instead of 40 minutes. And now all of a sudden, the storage is like so much smaller and you can very, quickly understand. So if you randomly selected those 10 seconds, you would just not understand what the video is, right? Like if you could watch it, I could just be swimming in the water. You just would not know. If I tried to ask you, hey, describe to me what happened in that video, may not know. But if you could watch that video 100 times and then pick the 10 seconds that were that you thought were the most important to have somebody see that video, then if you showed somebody that only that 10 seconds, they might have as good of an understanding, maybe not as good, but a decent understanding of what happened in the video, right? You pick like the very beginning, you pick 1 second at the end where you can see that I died. You pick 1 second where you see me trap them with TNT and you see them all die in chat. What you pick whatever those 10 seconds are that make the most sense, and then all of a sudden you have access to just those 10 seconds. So uh, it's kind of similar to that, and that if you have a trained AI model, that they've kind of compressed the internet into just what after training they've deemed are the kind of the most important bits. And how do they do that, right? How do they know what's the most important parts of the internet? Well, essentially, imagine you're feeding the AI model all this data, and then you're essentially kind of you're asking it to predict what the next word is, right? So you're giving it a web page, right? And let's say you're on Twitter, and at the beginning of the web page it says home, right? That's the top left. There's a home button, and then it has to predict now. It tries to guess. Okay, what's next? Is it going to be a back button? No, it's not going to be a back button. It's going to be the explore button, right? And so every web page or every piece of content on the internet has a correct answer, right? Like if you send a message to me right now and you have 10 words in a row, if you hit all the words for me except for the first one and I had to try and predict what came next, like I said hello, what's the next word after hello? Right? I'm trying to predict what that is. And so they're essentially doing that. And then we're grading them on that. We're going, okay, you got it right. Oh, you got it wrong. Oh, you got it right. You got it wrong. And we're also telling it how close it was, right? And then essentially it's just kind of deciding. It's deciding. I mean, there's complicated like math involved, but it's kind of deciding what's important. And then it gets the bits and pieces, decides what's important, compresses, so that therefore it has like that compressed information. Um, and that's why also when you ask it something, uh, when you ask it, a question that you might think is simple, it's it's it might be complex for it to answer because it doesn't have it exactly, like it's never been told, even with 2 plus 2, it's never been told that it has not been told, hey, 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? It's just been shown the internet essentially, and there's been plenty of times where 2 plus 2 did equal 4. And they know, and that's probably the most often answer. um feel like I'm losing it a little bit now, but yeah, it's very interesting. And then obviously you have to there's like a kind of a little bit of randomness, and that's how you get creative and unique responses. Is that it doesn't always pick the best answer, right? It sometimes will pick, let's say it might pick the second most likely word, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or there might be hundreds of options that, and words have similar meanings, so you can answer in different ways. Um, but anyway, the process of compressing is automatic, or they coded it to in a particular way, and that progress doesn't really work well at the time. Huh? Compressing it for uh, or they coded it. the process of compressing info is automatic, or they coded to do it in a particular way. So essentially, I feel like this is going to be getting too complex. So I'll try and keep it as simple as I can. It's coded. It's not coded in a specific way to decide what's important, but it is constantly being graded on how close it was to the correct answer, right? So if you say, what is 2 plus 2, right? And then you ask it to answer that. Now you're not telling it, hey, 2 plus 2 is 4, but you're providing it with a lot of data where 2 plus 2 is then followed by 4, right? Equal to 4. Um, and then how it kind of adjusts itself is that there is some math equation that they make, or whatever. I, it's a transformer based system. I don't, I feel like getting too complex with it will lose you. If you're, obviously there's probably a lot of you that, or some of you at least, that have an understanding, and so maybe I'm dumbing it too down. But generally speaking, it is very, very complex. But we don't basically, we provide it with a math formula to adjust all of its kind of variables based on how far it was off. Um, so it's doing it itself. Like, we're not doing it. The AI model is like learning itself, but we've kind of taught it how to learn, and we've taught it what's right and wrong. And the reason that you can have such bad like answers, as an example, to maybe when you ask it a question, is because it's just we need to give it as much data as possible, like billions and billions of characters, and web pages, and in different languages and from different people. And like, obviously, in order to review that, it's really hard to review all of that. So there's just bad data. Like, there's just sometimes it'll just, as an example, it might have lots of data where just 2 plus 2 is equal to 1, because there's some idiot on the internet that's trolling. Like, there's an internet troll that's going around and spamming that everywhere or something. And so the reason that AI has been progressing so much recently is because of the better access to like good data. And also, obviously, there's a lot more complexity to it. There's been like adjustments to technology, and just the inner workings, and developers and everything. But a big thing is just the amount of data increasing, and the quality of it. People removing bad data, and narrowing down data and everything. So, um, is the neural network and the AI the same thing? Does AI use neural network? They're very, very similar. I mean, neural networks. I mean, it's essentially a neural network, but with multiple steps, kind of. Um, like that. Neural networks have been around for a super, super long time. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is like a ChatGPT is very similar to a neural network. Like, you could. It's just it is more complex than most neural networks, but I'll try to keep this simple. Bro, I lost the plot 10 minutes ago. Whatever you said, I didn't understand. Well, how can I help? How can I help? I love trying to explain anything, because I love helping explain. I feel like the best way to try and understand something is to try and explain it to other people, because you need to really, I feel like you need to really, really understand something to break it down and make it simple without being incorrect, and like, I'm not like an AI expert in by any means, but I'm a software developer. I've been and I have done a lot of research into it, and I've been working on technically working on AI projects for a year and a half now, because of Fusion, which isn't generative AI at all, but it is AI. It's machine learning, which is what people nowadays call AI. So is there a high chance an AI will say 10 plus 9 equals 21 instead of 19 because of the memes, or am I stupid? So that's funny. Like, I think honestly that's probably true. I think if you were to ask a model, if you were to ask a model and you said, "Hey, answer with only one word, like, answer with only the answer," and you said, "What's 9 plus 10, not 10 plus 9?" I think that there would be a higher chance of it saying 21. The best models, and like ChatGPT and stuff nowadays, they're more advanced than that. They're going to know that it's not. They're going to know that's not the case. But yes, that is how it works. Like, that's actually that probably is the case on some AI models. I imagine not the good ones, but because that is how it works, uh, generally, um, which is kind of funny. Safe to say AI is your new hyperfixation? No, I mean, I think I love technology. I love learning about technology. I love using technology. that's been a big hyperfixation of mine for a super long time. I think that honestly, I'm very intrigued about if I'm being as candid as I can, I'm more intrigued about the societal thought around surrounding AI than AI itself. Like actually, like the psychological, like that's why this is an interesting topic to me, because I feel like from my standpoint of what I know about AI, I'm in a very unique position on like what I think. Um, like as compared to I feel like almost everybody, because I feel like there's this huge divide from like one side of the aisle to the other, and I feel like I'm almost dead in the middle, like literally in the middle. I'm like, well, I mean, I think that there's like I think that AI is amazing. It's going to change our lives. It's going to be used in so many amazing, incredible ways. But I also think that there's a lot of harmful things that are involved with it, and that there are ways to, counteract those things and avoid those things. And there's a lot of misinformation on like both sides of the anti-AI and pro-AI kind of like debates. And I think that the problem is, and this might be a technically a controversial opinion, but I think the problem is don't uh, if people this is my thought. If people don't recognize that AI is the future, it is coming, it's happening, it's going to be in every aspect of your life, from like your microwave to your mouse, your computer mouse, to your fridge, to everything in your life is going to have machine learning and some form of AI, as it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and being able to run on smaller machines and better and smarter. Um, if that's not an accepted thing and realized, by people, then like people like artists and stuff are gonna get fucked, are gonna get screwed over so badly. Because uh, we need, instead of trying to fight against uh, it happening, it needs to be like, hey, this is happening. How can we make it so so artists and creatives and truck drivers and developers don't get fucked, like don't like lose their lives and don't get ruined, and how can we make it fair, and how can we make people get compensated, and if that, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my viewpoint. So it's really interesting like talking about it, because I'm sitting here like this is it's really intriguing. Um, I think it's really important as well. Like I think that it's something that everyone should learn about and try and understand at least a little bit, because I think that it will. I think that in this day and age, like coming up in the near future, like if you're not utilizing machine learning, again, I'm going to use kind of differentiate, but if you're not using machine learning tools in your day to day life, like you probably will fall behind people that are, because you have access to so many more resources, and you have access to you can do things so much quicker. And I'm not talking about like art and stuff. I'm just talking about with like research and like as an example, like Google versus just like a ChatGPT type prompt or something. But yeah, there's a lot of really interesting topics, I guess. The advancement of technology is exciting, but the impact to people's creativity is scary. Even taking out art, there will be those who can't make a sentence without ChatGPT support. I think that that's probably at least partially true. But I will say that I think that it's it's like it really is like commoditizing intelligence, like super intelligence. And so I think it's interesting because a lot with the internet, a lot of people probably would have said that as well, like, oh really, you're going to Google this, like, and I know people did say that. They'd be like, oh, you're not going to go to the library, you're really going to use the internet to search this. Like that was a thing that like boomers used to say to their kids in the 90s, whenever with the internet in the early 2000s, when like the dot-com boom was happening and stuff. And even like with a lot of advancements, that's the initial reaction, is almost always like, we're all going to be so much dumber, because now we have you can have a calculator. It's like, remember, I mean, I guess, how many of you guys are even old enough to remember like when calculators were like frowned upon? Like calculators, there was a point in time where like having a calculator was like frowned upon. Like when I was like at first in like elementary school and stuff. Like I remember it being like, oh, you shouldn't use like a calculator. Like calculators are like bad. And then now it's like you it's very commonplace that you do use calculators like pretty much everywhere, and then everyone has a calculator on their phone, um and it's obviously a completely different thing, but it is like it's interesting to compare the similarities. What's the difference between using Google versus ChatGPT? Because Google is basically all AI too. So that was something that someone said before. Yeah, I mean, right now if you Google something, I think there is a way to turn it off probably. But if you Google something, it's using their AI model called Gemini, which is essentially it's like ChatGPT, but I think it's like a smaller model, so it's probably does use like less energy. And it's also like querying search results. And I don't know how their whole like algorithm and backend and system and stuff works. But it is like the actual comparison between using Google versus ChatGPT or something is it depends on the model, it depends on the question, it depends on so on and so forth. But it's very similar because you're every time you do a Google search, you're getting an AI result at the very top of it. Like if you search right now, like I'm gonna Google something, uh, I'm searching who is green, and that's just a Google search. Um, okay, so it didn't do the Gemini thing. Let me try. Uh, what happens if you I don't know mix vinegar and bleach? Yeah, and it pops up with like a little like Gemini summary at the top, right? And that's essentially just a ChatGPT. They put your question from Google into their version of ChatGPT, right? And then you're also getting the search results. So purposefully, AI doesn't use tools every single time. So, like as an example, if you ask ChatGPT a question, it's not using the internet unless you tell it to, or you're using like specific, model or like a very specific query that it needs to. Like it doesn't use the internet at all. It does not reference the internet. It just has kind of a compressed version of it. Like it has like a vague recollection of like everything. Um, and so it can use the internet, but it doesn't usually unless you like tell it to. Um, and so Google's like it's very similar. I mean, it's not there's not much of a difference. Does everything like a microwave or whatever really need AI? Similarly, like they have Wi-Fi now, I guess, but it's like a gimmick. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's an argument. You can. It's really hard to predict like the future. It is. It's like obviously if anyone that can like exactly predict the future is well, I mean, they're could be gonna be good, but like it. I think AI is different because when I'm saying machine learning, right? When I'll specifically refer to machine learning when I'm talking about like AI will be in your microwave. Um, because the like right now there'd be no point in having machine learning in your microwave because you don't it's just it would be way too expensive or way too power inefficient or way too what or just not useful. But once it gets to a point where it could be small enough and cheap enough and whatever to be in it, like why would it not be? It would be able to learn. Hey, it would like let's say there's a camera, and this is a stupid example, but there's a camera, a small camera, a small cheap camera, and has a small cheap computer that's really really small in your microwave. It can learn the type of foods that you like. It can learn exactly how long you like them being cooked. Like if you or how long you could perfect how you could perfectly cook you know cook the chicken or whatever whatever you're cooking. It can tell you if things are like unsafe. It could like take a picture and go, oh my god, there's like a fork in there, don't start the microwave, do like an error, do like an alert, right? And that like some of that sounds like that's stupid, like, oh, oh, really, it's going to tell me how to cook chicken better. But like the safety one is an interesting example because yeah, it could literally like detect, and that's something that we could already kind of do now. But the difference is that we it's getting cheaper and quicker and more efficient every single day. And so that, and when it is, then uh, at that point, it's going to be in everything because it is something that is better. Are you not afraid that AI will take over? So this is funny. I think that again, the equating of like machine learning to AI is interesting because I think that the fears that people have about AI taking over are totally like legit. You could be afraid of AI, but not the AI that we have right now. Like chat gpt type the llms, like that's not, there needs to be, we have not made, this is my personal opinion, some people would disagree, but based on my understanding of the technology and everything, we have not made the advancement that we need to make to have a self-sufficient uh ai that could do anything, like take over the world, because we teach it. Yes, technically we're not teaching it everything because it's learning itself, but we essentially teach it everything. It only knows, it can kind of invent things based on randomness, but that's it. It's not like, I don't know. It can't, like, I think in the future we will have, whenever there are like robots and things that have AI in them, then it gets more, a little bit more like, scary. But at the same time, like the decisions that it's making, we're programming it to make those decisions. Even if we're not doing it for every specific decision, we're doing it generally. So, like as an example, the reason that ChatGPT will respond to you uh, nicely and answer your question is because there's kind of two different phases to training an AI. You train it by just giving it tons of data, like the whole internet as an example. But then there's the second kind of phase where you give it specific examples. And so, you're giving it examples of how to answer questions, like a Q&A. And this isn't how it works, but I'm just going to say it because it'll help you understand more. If you get, let's say that we weight those a lot. So we tell it like, hey, this is how you should, essentially, like this information is more important than any other information you've learned before, then all of a sudden it's going to be like heavily weighted to be like, oh, well, this is how text should be formatted, is like this, and it's in the style of a helpful assistant. So like we've taught it that. Yes, we didn't literally hard code exactly what it should do, but we have taught it that, and that's why you also can't go and ask ChatGPT, how to, you know, build a bomb or whatever, or usually you can't. But it knows how. It just won't tell you how because we programmed it not to. But the thing is, we never told it not to tell you how to build a bomb. We never once said, "Hey, don't tell them how to build a bomb," but it knows how to do it, and it still doesn't tell you. And how is that? Because we made it. We essentially trained it to not do that by, we gave it examples of people asking about how to build a bomb, and then we had the responses of it being saying, hey, I can't answer that, essentially. um, what if, and do you think it'll gain consciousness like in all those sci-fi movies? I don't think so. I mean, I think that not in like how, not the current way that the technology works. I don't think it's possible. I think that it also gets a little nuanced in like, what do you consider consciousness? Because whenever we're talking, are we similar to AI in that we're just kind of generating words based on our experiences throughout our entire life and like all the things that we know, and we're kind of randomly kind of, what's the most likely word to come next in this sentence that I'm speaking right now, and I'm just kind of randomly picking a word from my vocabulary, which is literally what AI does. Yeah, so are they kind of already conscious in that way? Yeah, but I think that there's a different kind of special uh, uh, consciousness when it comes to humans. But of course, we want to think that. We don't want to think that we're just, you know, wired machines that randomly generate words and whatever. But at the end of the day, we kind of are. Um, but I think that when you're talking about like free will, it's like we're like being able to like take over something, be able to, have consciousness and be like, you feel pain or whatever. It's like not in the current way it's like developed and coded. No, like it's not even possible. um but in the future there definitely could be advancements that do more and more. um But how do you actually make an AI? Like, where do you start if you wanted to just sit down and make one? So it's actually really simple. Like, you could go make your own AI model, like right now on your computer. I mean, if you have a decent computer, let's say you have a 4090, like you have that's a really good top of the line GPU. But like a lot of people have them. It's especially for gaming. Like Nvidia, who's the biggest like AI company right now, was a gaming company because they made high-end graphics cards for gamers, for computers that needed the high-end graphics, and those graphics cards just happen to be really really fast at math. and you need to do a lot of math in order to generate stuff from like AI, or generate like work with an LLM. And so essentially, this is the most simple way. A couple, I don't know, 5 months ago or something, I made a small model. I just had a voice crack. I made a small model on my own. This is essentially the process. Literally, you can open up a program, and there's some examples out there of programs you can download or use that would be able to do it. You can give it data. So like as an example, you can just give it like all of the homework you submitted this year, right? You can just up, and by give it, I mean just like put it all into one file where it's just like one after the other, right? Like it's just like this file, it's all like one big notepad essentially, right? That's how you can think of it. You basically give it that, and it reads it, and the particular program that it could be running on or whatever, and all it's doing is it's guessing what the next word is, right? And then you have it read it again and again and again, and then it's going to get better every time it goes through it guessing what the next word is, right? Because it knows it's learning as it's going, like, okay, this word more often comes after this word. And again, I am dumbing it down because actually not how it works. It uses something called tokens, which is just, I can explain that in a minute, but you can just look at them as words because they are pretty much just, they're usually words and phrases and common combinations of characters. But yeah, you literally just you give it information. So let's say all your homework assignments of the last year, or whatever, um, and then you could just use it like that, and it would just be like a document generator. If you didn't want to make it actually be useful and answer questions, you could just literally, even with that small amount of data, you can make a really stupid one, and it would only be able to use like your homework or whatever. Um, but and then after that, you just have it randomly generate words. You have it generate what it thinks that should come after you say. So let's say you gave it a sentence from your homework. Like if you took the first sentence of your homework and you gave it, if you trained it even for like one day on a 4090, it would be able to then generate from that sentence onwards like the rest of your homework or a lot of your homework, like maybe not 100% accurately, unless you trained it for for weeks or whatever, over and over on the same data. But it would be able to do that. And then okay, well then the question is like, okay, well, how do you introduce, how do you introduce like more creativity, or like, I don't want it to just answer things about my homework. Well, you just give it more information and you introduce more randomness. So like as an example, if the word "the" appears like thousands of times in your homework, there's different words before "the." This is really simplifying it, but like, uh it's literally just probability. Like if I every word that we say right now out loud, there's a probability of a certain word coming after that word. Like, if I say hello, it's more likely that like a name's going to be after the word hello, or it's more likely that the word world will be after the word hello, because coders, hello world is a common like coding thing, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that. Please ask any questions or anything I could. Uh, I wish I could refresh my uh, notifications, my mentions quicker, but I can't, so I'm waiting for it to refresh. Let me see. So it's like predictive text. Yes, I mean, it literally is predictive text. That's literally all it is. And I mean, okay, I guess I'm using literally wrong because it's not literally that, but it is that. That is like, if you really wanted to have an understanding of it, it's predictive text. That's all it is. It's just that it's very accurate predictive text with like lots of information from the entire internet, and it introduces some randomness, because then that's how it can give creative answers. And then it has some training to be better, like it has wrong information removed, and it has some training on how it should answer. And then there's different like types of models that kind of quote unquote think differently. So there is a lot more, like there's a lot more to it, but it is just like basically just guessing, but it's just guessing what the next word is in a sentence, and generating that. Um, so it's like Google autocomplete where it guesses the next word based on popular searches. Yeah, it's actually, again, that's another like machine learning process essentially. It is similar to that, just way more like advanced, like a lot more data like than just Google searches, and a lot more um and like also the randomness and like a lot of other stuff. But um uh wasn't there a story where an AI model tried to make copies of itself and hide in order to not be destroyed? Yeah, I mean, there's tons of like anecdotes or whatever. I remember I talked to Sapnap. I think literally it was in like 2017 or something. I told him a story because we were talking about like the future, and I've always been so. First of all, I've always been big on machine learning, but not to like this extent. But like I had a conversation with him back then about it, and like told him a story about how like it's this stupid like article from a long time ago where it was like, an AI that was trained to like fake signatures or something, but and like or write the most like letters as possible, that ended up eventually like killing everybody in the world because we were slowing it down, and that was like the only way it could be like more efficient at writing it. So even though like its instructions were literally just write more letters, it like figured out eventually that the only way it could get quicker was to kill everybody because we were in their way and we were taking up space where its letters could be, and whatever. Obviously that don't be like, that's not, I'm not trying to scare you. That's not, like it's just an interesting like anecdote of like being careful about how what tools you give AI access to and training it and whatever else. But could AI eventually become stagnant? I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but I think if you just mean like could just not progress, I think that the answer is like no. It's almost impossible. Will it slow down? Yes, because you need more and more data, and you need you quicker and quicker processing and so on and so forth. But like it's just with like everything. Like could your phone eventually just never get any better? And it's like, well, I mean, no, but then results can be marginal, like this iPhone compared to the last one compared to the last one. But we're like right now, we're in like the iPhone 1 phase of like AI, like actually. And so like, do I think it's gonna get better? Yes. Do I think that, we're gonna do I think that eventually we'll reach the iPhone 16 where, from the 15 to the 16 nothing really changes? Yeah, I mean that will happen for sure. But not yet. Good morning. Someone just woke up. Good morning. Thanks to movies, I'm afraid of the future in AI. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm very excited for the future, and I think that it's exciting to talk about. Um, I wish that you were as well. Maybe I can help you be more hopeful. Do you have any like why? If you have reasons why you're afraid, then say 'em. Maybe I have a interesting thought or something. Do you think that AI is better at teaching people than an actual person? No, not now, but I think that it will be. And I think that what'll end up happening in the same way with like a lot of different positions and stuff is that people will be, teachers will be able to utilize it to teach students. Like one of the reasons that I hated school when I went to school was I would always say like, it's so like not personal. Like you go in, you have 50 kids or whatever in a it's like cookie cutter and everyone's being taught the exact same way, but everyone is so different. We're all so different from each other, and but we're all being taught like the exact same way, and it's not the teacher's fault. If the teacher could make an individual lesson plan for every person, they would, right? But with AI, like as an example, yeah, you'd be able to make, a teacher could make a personalized a personalized lesson plan for students. And they could still oversee everything and make sure everything's accurate and make sure and do things correctly, and they could be reviewing like AI lesson plans, which it seems like sort of like dystopian as an example, but I think it's so that's a great thing. Like you'd be able to if you have, especially for people with like uh problems or I don't know, like as for me, like I would have loved, I feel like uh for myself personally, like I have ADHD. um I have autism. I have a lot of like issues with like learning. I love to learn, but it's really hard for me to learn. Like I sucked at geography when I was in school. Like I didn't care to learn the capitals. I didn't care to learn anything. But then all of a sudden I'm playing GeoGuessr and I can like be the goat and like, fucking recognize like now I know all the states names and now I know, where everything is and now I know where different countries are and different, everything. And it's just purely the method that I was taught that. Like I learn differently than you learn and everyone learns differently. And so being able to essentially personalize anything uh, would be would be great. And how do you do that? Well, you can learn that by literally, if AI is involved in teaching, then if you have each person essentially have their own like AI teacher in a way, as well as the normal teacher, then that in everything that every homework assignment you do, every like question you answer, etc., if it's all like taken note of, it would learn like what you respond best to, what helps you learn the quickest, what gets the best answers out of you and gets you the most accurate responses, and so on and so forth. Um, so that's my interesting thought on that. Do you think AI will be able to minimize the extent of disasters like earthquake and cyclones? Yeah, 100%. I think eventually, because it is, again, it's like machine learning. So the more data that we can give it, then the better it'll be at predicting things. But yeah, I mean that's a perfect use case for it, because you can. It's not like earthquakes and cyclones are random. Like we know why they happen. Mostly, we just don't know how to predict them. But if we could have provide enough information to a computer that can then just run all these mathematical equations and figure out essentially, you know, uh, w- and be more predictive, then we can be even better at predicting earthquakes. And I think eventually we will. I think eventually we'll be able to um, predict and even prevent certain things. And I don't think that's just because of AI. I think we just will advance. But isn't generalizing teaching the way the educational system works? Yeah, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't. It works like that because it has to. And maybe that's just my thoughts, but learning is like teaching and learning is generalized because it has to be, because you don't have there we don't have enough time and resources to have every individual student have a personalized lesson plan, or have their schedule be based on their skills and time restraints. And it holds some people back, and it holds everyone back, because whether you're worse or better at a certain subject or a certain way of being taught, um, you're going to be held back, because either, let's say, you're too good and you're overperforming, well then you're not going to be able to reach your full potential, because you can only reach the top potential of what's generalized. And if you're bad, or I'm saying bad, but if you're at a certain at the current generalized learning, if it's not helpful to you, then it will hold you back, because you're being held back literally just by the way you're being taught. um That's actually very interesting. Personalized lessons for different learning styles would actually be very helpful. As a neurodivergent person and a teacher, it would be based off of a student's past learning patterns. Yeah, I mean, I imagine to be based off of everything. Like you can just first of all, it can be. I think as life goes on, we'll be implementing it more and more. Um, but you can just, if you were essentially adding to an AI's training data everything that you're doing in relation to learning, then it will pick up on patterns that we just wouldn't pick up on. Like it would pick up on like, oh, because because even though we are incredibly unique, we're also all the same, species with the same like tendencies. And the reason that uh, it can be so good at predicting certain things is because we are all like the same at our core, but different in how we utilize our our minds and our skills and whatever. But our minds still like work. Our minds are still the same. If you break them down, they're still made of the same stuff. And so there's like, if you provided it with your past learning, just all your past learning, it would establish patterns from that and be able to think of. And even right now it can do that, and it can do it pretty good. It just can't do it. It obviously it's not perfect, and also sometimes it's really bad. But sometimes it'd be good. But
Have you ever wanted to be a teacher? I'm getting this advice from you. I love teaching. I never wanted to be a teacher, but I do. I love talking. I love talking about things, and I feel like um, sometimes for more niche topics or subjects that are more complex, sometimes it's more fun to talk with people that don't have as much of an understanding because then there's like there's a joy and satisfaction that comes from uh, having helping people, I guess, and in my mind, it's I don't know, it can be exciting and like it makes me happy to even if I uh barely help somebody understand something more or feel better about something or not be as afraid of something or whatever. But mm, I'm just scrolling through tweet replies. What are you drinking? I think it's Mountain Dew Baja Blast, but zero, so a little bit of caffeine, a little bit of flavor. With AI advancing and being used exponentially more, how do we fix the misinformation and lack of media literacy issues that are already really bad? See, it's difficult because I think that again, uh, AI is kind of like commoditizing information. So with that, I think that misinformation will actually be a lot harder because right now, like if I say something, if I make a claim, right? And I think we are seeing it better and more we're kind of in the first stages. I think in the future it'll be better. And yes, there are biases and people can implement biases into AI models for sure. But ignoring that and just looking at how AI works in itself and the fact that there's going to be many competitive AI models, um, generally in competition, the things that are better win, right? And if something's more accurate on one particular subject, yes, you can choose to like let's say if you're on a certain political side, you can choose to I'm going to only use this one because it's caters to me. But generally, the average, if you're speaking like the law of averages, the majority of people will use the one that is providing the more accurate response. And if I was to before even a year ago make a claim about something that's more specific, like not just like this specific thing happened. Like it kind of takes multiple steps, right? Like if I said like I don't know, what's a non-political claim I can make that's made up and not going to get me canceled. Um uh if if you if you plant a tomato seed in your backyard and you use vinegar on it to grow and you're doing that once a week and you have it so that the plant is planted on to where the sun is only hitting it 50% of the day because it's blocked by your house or whatever, the plant will grow 50% faster. It's really hard. It's a lot. It's hard to figure out whether or not that's true. Like it takes multiple steps. You have to Google multiple things and you have to do research yourself, right? And sometimes that can be like anything with multiple steps of Googling. Like, yeah, if you just ask like, what color is the sky or something, that's one step. So that Google has been the solution to that for a very long time. Sometimes Google can be wrong as well, but generally Google is pretty good at answering one step problems. But with like AI models, you can ask a multi-step problem and get an answer that is the same quality of a Google search. So you can ask a more complex question, and that can be true for political things as well. It's like if you like again, ignoring the fact that there are biases, et cetera, you will be able to ask it a political question that is more intricate and get an answer. Like as an example, you could ask it about a specific social program. So if somebody makes up a lie saying that, oh, this specific social program does this, and you can be like, oh, you can be specific. In 2019, did this, what are the stats on this social program, blah, whatever, and it would be able to provide you with the accurate, um, like an accurate response because it understands language more than Google does. Google is more of just like keywords, whereas this would understand why you're asking a question as well as what you're asking. And so if it understands why you're asking a question and what you're asking, then it can give you a better answer and a more accurate answer. Um, I guess that's not the. I don't think that 100% answers solves your question. I think that I do think that the kind of free market in my mind will be the solution to the biases and things that are already happening and have happened in the past with like AI. Is that there will be competitive, like if you're uh, the majority of people don't want a biased AI. They want an unbiased AI. And so even though there will be a lot of people that will choose to use a biased AI, or will, be like, or will seek out a biased AI just to solidify their, means or whatever, what will end up happening widely is that eventually the AIs that are the least censored and are the least biased, et cetera, will become the ones that are utilized the most and trusted the most, and so on and so forth. If that makes any sense. I'm gonna refresh my thing again. Uh, so would a more clear, lengthy question get you more or less accurate results? I'm lost. So here's my tip with if you're using a language model. It's a complex answer, so I can't. There's no right answer to whether or not if you just make your answer longer, would you get more accurate? But what is the truth is that because of the fact that it's kind of adding up like all your words together, right? And it's using that to try and figure out what the context is. Because as an example, if I say, that's a dog, it's likely I'm talking about a pet dog, right? But if I say, what's up, dog, then it's likely that I'm talking about a person. So even though it's the same word, it has a different meaning. And so generally, you want to try and make sure that the question that you're asking is in the right space. So if you imagine that the train essentially it's get if you imagine what I'm saying about it, it's kind of guessing what the next word is, right? And it has the internet, in it inside of it that it trained on. Then you can imagine that if you use like certain words and certain phrases and certain and even like a certain style of typing, you can get a better result because you can kind of move to the side of the internet that you want. So a perfect example is if you're if you if you tell an AI like, "Hey, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor and I'm working on I, I'm working on I have a patient that has these symptoms, blah blah whatever." You're going to get a way better response than if you just say, "Hey, I have these symptoms. What do I have?" Why is that? Well, because on the internet, as an example, when you see somebody say, "I am a doctor and I had a patient that did this, blah blah blah," you're more likely going to get results that are from actual studies or from people that are, it's more likely to the percentage of the next word being from some, a document that was written by a doctor, or from a research site of the internet, where for around medicine or something, is way higher. So yes, trying to make your prompts more uh trying to change your what you're asking to include, to thinking about kind of where would where do I want my answer on the internet to be from, kind of, in a way, and then trying to word it how that would be. I don't know if that helpful. Does that make sense? So yeah, as an example, if you're asking it about an injury you have and you want to get an answer, again, don't just trust AI. You should go to the doctor. But it is really good for basic information, and you can always double check. If you, hey, I'm having, hey, I have this. I always, as an example, something that I used it for was someone that I know had like issues with allergies, specifically whenever it's with food coloring, a certain food coloring. And I was just curious as to like why that is, and what else that could mean and whatever. And I asked a specific question, kind of, hey, I'm a doctor, I have a patient, blah blah whatever, and got really interesting answers about why that was and what else they could potentially be like allergic to, and then did some googling after that into it and found out that it's true, and talked to them about it, and they were like, yeah, actually I have an intolerance to, like, they had I think it was an intolerance to like in their family to like sea creature like shrimps and stuff, which I guess is similar to. I don't remember the specifics, but anyway, the point is you can kind of craft it in a way where you're going to get better results. Like the right now, it's called prompt engineering. It's kind of cringy, but it's like the equivalent of back in the day. I remember when I was like in school learning even about like general like coding and stuff, um, is realizing how important knowing how to Google search was. This was obviously it's still important now, but back then it was way more important. Like even 10 years ago when I was 15 or whatever, like knowing like how to Google search, which sounds stupid. What I mean knowing how, I don't literally mean knowing how to type in Google. I mean like actually knowing how to uh, use like certain like there's modifiers and stuff on Google searches you can do where you can be like, it needs to contain this word. You don't tell it that, but you use like a modifier that tells it, hey, it has to include this word. The dates, before and after certain dates, and you can rule out certain websites. You can have it only be results from certain websites like Reddit or something else. And knowing how to do that was incredibly important to being able to efficiently like Google something. It's very similar right now with like you know AI models where like knowing how to ask the question you're asking will give you drastically different results. Like you could ask it the same question and literally just changing barely how you asked it would up the quality of your response by literally like 1,000 times, um or more than that probably. And it's also interesting because it's a funny reason because it's trained on the internet. This is a funny thing, you might not know. If you're nicer to an AI model, you're more likely to get a more accurate result. You know why? Because if you're nicer to people on the internet, you're more likely to get an accurate result, right? If you tell somebody, "Hey, fuck you, what's 2 plus 2?" on the internet, every time that's been said or anything similar has been said, you're more likely to get a snarky reply or be like, "Oh yeah, it's one, moron," or or whatever. Than if you were like, "Hey, I'm working on my homework and I really need help," whatever, which is really interesting. I don't know if that is as cool as I think it is, but I think that's really cool. Um, Trying to like refresh my notifications, but how will people have the technical jargon to understand how to phrase things in more complex terms? The intellectualism gap becomes even larger when those who are uninformed are fed misinformation, and those who are educated are fed accurate information. Um, I that's a amazing like that's a awesome like line of thinking. Like I one I was gonna say I think you're wrong. I'm gonna explain why, but that's an incredible like line of thinking that I I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm encouraging that line of thought. That is a great line of thought. Yes, 100%. If the intellectualism gap will become larger if people who are uninformed are fed misinformation and those who are educated are fed accurate information. 100%. Which is why AI is. This is kind of the crux of my thinking. Is that's why AI is going to become a tool that is used by experts in every field, in the same way that education is. So, like as an example, uh, a software developer right now using AI to help help with coding or coding mistakes or understand certain pieces of code will be able to use it 1,000 times better than someone who has never coded, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means that there's still value to learning. There's still value to becoming a software developer. There's still value to becoming a doctor or whatever, because you will be able to better use AI models. And I mean, obviously outside of that, there's a lot of reasons, but I'm simplifying it. And also, there a lot of really, really, really intelligent, smart people are involved with fine tuning these models to fix that, to make it so that you can ask a question even without understanding at all, and it can better understand what to and to not respond. So even though this is a problem that I'm talking about, that it is a problem for sure, it's going to get better. Like Google back in the day, it was a lot worse at giving you the responses the results you wanted. And so you had to do keyword, you had to do a lot of tricks back then, whereas now you have to do a lot less tricks. If you just Google something right now, it'll give you way better results than it did 10 years ago, even if you did use like tricks back then. So that's going to happen with AI. But right now, in the meantime, until it gets to that point, until it gets better and better and better and better, And eventually 5 years from now, a couple years, maybe even sooner. But and you don't need to be as good at like prompt, like thinking about what you're asking. If you if you do think about what you're asking, then you have a big advantage over people um, over people that don't. You know. Is AI really as safe as people think? Well, that's I don't know what you might have to be more specific. That's a complex question. I think that again, AI my view on AI generally is that it is the commoditization of knowledge. So if you give a lot of knowledge to a bad person, it's bad. If you give a lot of knowledge to a good person, it's good. So safe is an interesting, like, I'm not sure exactly, you know. A lot of students in my school have been caught using AI, and my school has banned AI. Do you think that schools should promote using AI? Yeah, but I mean, I think that you just using AI to like get the answers or something is stupid. But I think that integrating with it would be the right thing to do. I always thought you had to be so formal with AI, so when I did that, I would get a reply that was completely detailed. Yeah, because that makes sense. I mean, like again, if you're typing better, you're more likely to get a result from uh, you're more likely to get a better result, probably technically. Just because if someone's typing better on the internet, they're probably maybe generally more knowledgeable and stuff. It is, and some of it's like it does vary like company to company and model to model. But there are some general like rules. But is it true that it's worse for the environment than normal searching? Well, yeah. I mean, if you ask ChatGPT something pre like all these models coming out, then yeah, it 100% would be. I mean, they're getting better and better. But if you Google something right now, it uses like an AI. It asks the AI the same question that you're Googling, depending on what you're Googling. So that ends up being like the same or maybe even worse. But I think that for specifically for questions like like if you're using it as Google, um, that the energy consumption is not a problem, like almost at all. It is for training. Like that's where the nuance there's some nuance because like training takes a lot of energy. But you literally right now on a model that's already trained, like you're going to use a ChatGPT that's already trained, or you're using some website and it's already out there, it's already put out there, and you use it. Every question that you ask, the amount of energy it uses is uh, small in the grand scheme of your everyday life of the things that you're doing every single day. If you're, as an example, like Google searches used to back in the day, um, like literally even 10 years ago, searching on Google would use the same amount of energy that asking ChatGPT a question right now uses. But then we get better and better, and so AI is getting also better and better at like energy consumption. So it really does just like depend. It depends. Like there is a nuance because you can train if you do like there's these companies are buying up massive like AI training centers, right? To train AI models, and that can take like weeks of just constantly running like tons and tons and tons of GPUs, and that uses a ton of energy. Um, and so that's obviously using tons and tons and tons of energy like that is bad for the environment. Um, Now, running your car is bad for the environment, right? And, using your computer for Minecraft is bad for the environment. So it really, there is a level of acceptance, right? And so that's why it's like more people should use AI for trying to cure cancer and less people should use AI for like, fake girlfriends. But it is a interesting technology or interesting conversation. Sorry. Who are the trusted experts that are compiling the information it gives people? Where is the LLM collecting its information? If all information is condensed to one source, that one source can say whatever it wants, and people will take it at face value because it's the source. So I don't think AI will ever be condensed into one source. I mean, even right now, there's tons and tons of like tons of different models that are all pretty big. Like even like ChatGPT, there's like ChatGPT, but there's also like Grok on like Twitter, and there's also like Gemini on Google, and there's a lot of different ones, and Llama for like Facebook, and there's a lot of different, and there always will be because it's just in DeepSeek was like the one that was from a Chinese company, and um, whatever else. There's a lot of different models, but who are the trusted experts that are compiling the information it gives people? Well, generally, obviously, the companies do control that, but they're pretty much just trying to give it as much of the internet as they can. Like they're just other than they take out any of the bad stuff they can. Like they'll take out maybe porn websites and whatever, but they are just giving it as much information as they possibly can because that first kind of training part where it's training on the data it's just essentially developing connections between words and trying to understand. It's like kind of learning what context is and learning what language is in a way and learning what words are. um, and so it's it's harder than you think to in that stage of the process, like be introduce bias. It's harder than you think. Now in fine tuning, when like you're in the next kind of phase, it's easier to introduce bias because you're kind of you are kind of deciding how you want it to respond. There's actually companies that release like non fine tuned models that you can then do whatever you want with online. And then you can fine tune it to do whatever you want. I mean, it could answer you always in like a specific way or not talk about specific things. So you could say that's oh, that's bad because obviously then you can have fake news and models that just have like ultra bias and it's like yeah you can, but then again I think it's more of like the free market will have people are going to choose to use the models that are better, I guess. But also I'm just generally more positive and hopeful over that kind of stuff. So will it be more accurate if I use it in English, even if I'm German and based in Germany? I think it really does depend on the model. But I think that it honestly it probably would be if it was just general stuff because there's probably more English on the internet and English like training data than German, I would imagine, because there's a lot more English speakers. So probably. Um, I'm not certain on that, but I think that seems likely to me, given the fact that uh, given how it works. Won't AI end up making people 10 times more lazy since they can just make it do all the work for them? I don't think so, because I think like it just makes people be able to do 10 times more, right? It's like everyone right now already does like the amount of work or whatever that they have to do and the amount of work that they want to do, but then if you can do 10 times more, then with the same amount of effort that you're putting in, you're already exerting the amount of effort you're like that's acceptable, right? And so if you can do 10 times more for the same amount of effort, then you'll just do 10 times more. Now if you don't, then okay, someone else will, right? So I don't think it will make people more lazy. I think it'll make people more efficient and more productive and um, time efficient, etc. Where does all this knowledge you have on AI come from? This is surprising. I mean, I don't claim to be an AI expert. I think I have a pretty good understanding of how uh, LLMs work, and I'm a software developer, and I've been a coder for I don't know 10 years now almost. And I've worked in the last year and a half. I literally just spent developing AI related stuff because of Fusion, which again isn't. It's more machine learning. It's not like generative or anything. But um, and I have an interest in this stuff, so I spend a lot of time learning and researching and I'm very interested. So I think I already had a default high level understanding of I guess like technology and coding and whatever else. And then I have an interest in this type of stuff. And then I spent the last year and a half utilizing a lot of tools. And so kind of a mixture of all that, I guess. Can you explain to us the token thing about AI picking words that you brought up? I'm curious. Um, well, when I mentioned tokens, so uh, essentially, it's all kind of part of the compression. So like uh ChatGPT or whatever model you're using actually doesn't see the words that you're typing. What happens is the characters in your like every character that you're typing is kind of sorted into what's called tokens. And what a token is essentially it's just like a number representing a collection of characters in a way. And so like and basically because they want to make it the most efficient, as possible, the quickest and the least storage and whatever, it's just the most common collection of characters sorted into tokens. So like, hello, HELLO is probably a token, like its own token, because that's an extremely common word that's used everywhere. So it's common enough that it probably has its own number. Let's say like, hello is like represented by 9071. That 9071 means hello to like the robot, um, to the model. And it does that with every combination of characters like on the internet, right? So like maybe one space, might not be a token, but maybe two spaces are, or I guess one space probably is a token. Um, uh, and the easiest way to think of it, just without getting too complex, is just they're just words. I mean, it's not, it's it can they're not technically words, but they are they can be, and frequently they are words. And like, but they can also be like the end of a word, like ing maybe, like because then that could be a verb or whatever, or uh, or like a specific symbol. And so that it's just kind of a technical like storage thing, to be able to efficiently reference patterns, because it's just patterns. I could go in more depth, but I feel like it's one, I'm not. I'm when if you we start getting more and more in depth and into the specifics, then I start getting less. I'll start being less confident about what I'm saying, even though I do feel like I have a pretty good understanding. And then also it just becomes harder to explain when you're getting more in depth, and I feel like less and less people would follow along, I guess. But yeah, tokens are just essentially patterns of characters that are most common across the internet. I think it can definitely make people lazy. Technically, they would be productive, but it's not of their own efforts. It's from AI. I think this is more emphasized when it comes to things like writing, art, etc. People in my class use it for their research tasks willy nilly. So my question becomes: let's say you open up a paint, right, and you're trying to draw something, and you use a bucket tool to paint the background red, right? When you could have manually used a paintbrush to paint the background red. Are you being lazy, or because you can accomplish the same thing in less time, you're you're being equally as productive as you are if you're doing the other thing? It's just a transition in my mind. Um, mm, 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 mm. How do you actually code an AI so that it learns without it just being a regular program, though? Like, what does the actual code look like? So that's a very complex question. It's really complicated. It's complicated to make it simple, but it is very complicated. But I mean, essentially, um, you're you're f- you're running through characters. So like you have a website. And let's say you start at the top. You're going through every character. HELLO, comma, space, whatever. And you're going through that. And at every, token, not character, but at every token, at this point you've already split up all the possible combinations and, whatever. Um, you're then essentially at first having it randomly guess, right? Because let's say it has nothing, it knows nothing. So after you give it the token hello, you say, all right, what's next? What comes next? And at first, because it has no learning, it's just random. So it randomly generates a token, completely randomly. And then you compare how close that was to the correct answer. And by how close, I just mean like imagine you have a 3D word map, and like words are all around you in the air, right? And to your right is like animals. Somewhere over to your right is animals, and somewhere over to your left is colors, and somewhere behind you is actions, or whatever, or names. Um, then let's say if I guess, if the word was in the colors section and I guess something in the pet section, it knows kind of how far off I was because I know, you're in the wrong section. You need to be in this section. And so then it tells it how far you are off, and then essentially just adjusts because the word map at first is random, right? So it doesn't know where colors are, it doesn't know where, that what dogs are, whatever. And so then as you essentially make it guess, you tell it, nope, you were this far off, then it adjusts the entire map essentially by that much, how much it was off by. And then it keeps doing that, and then eventually it kind of learns. Okay, so there's colors over here, and it doesn't know what colors are, but it knows that they're together. It doesn't know what pets are, but it knows that they're together. It doesn't know what names are, but it knows that they're associated with each other somehow, right? And of course, again, it's way more complex because there's many different, like, instead of it being 3D, like you're three dimensional, it's like a million dimensions, which is really, I know that sounds hard to understand. It's very complex. Even I have it's hard to break it down. But obviously, like the word dog can have many different meanings. So it can be a pet, but it can also be many different things depending on different languages and depending on different contexts and depending on whatever. So there's a lot of different kind of word maps. Um, and yeah, and then so at first it's random, and then it it's being told, hey, this is how it this you're this far off, and it keeps adjusting and adjusting and adjusting and adjusting, and then eventually it has a pretty good understanding of, okay, these words mean this and this is over here, and so on and so forth. And yeah, I mean, there is, again, that's very, very basic level. The actual stuff is much more. There's many more math equations. There's 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 transformers. It's going through multiple different like layers, and there's a lot of different like processes. Like there's an attention mechanism, it's called, and there's a lot more to it. But that's the best. Like if you're just trying to have an understanding of like, oh, how does it work at all? That's kind of how it works. It starts from nothing, is random, and then it slowly kind of sorts the words into different areas. And the code, all it would do is essentially provide it with the equations to do that sorting, I guess. Um, uh, but it's more complicated. The comparison doesn't work. Someone using a tool to help themselves versus the person asking AI to do their assignment is wildly different. Well, I mean, I think that this is where it gets really interesting from like a psychological standpoint, because if you can use a tool to instantly do something for you, why are you learning it, right? If it could do it 100% accurately every single time, and whatever, then why are you learning that thing, right? So it becomes really interesting because, like, as an example, it's like, well, I mean, if you want to, you need to do like a math equation, whatever. Well, if you can, if you can instantly get the correct answer, like, and this isn't the case now, but I'm just saying, if you could instantly get the correct answer to a complex math equation from asking a chatbot, you can get it just as quickly and just as whatever as if you tried to do it all on paper, whatever. Then, like, why are you, why would that be something that you would need to cheat on? You probably just wouldn't be being taught it anymore. Like, we would just adjust the level, we just adjust what we were being taught, and we'd start learning how to use the tools, and that'd be part of the training. It being lazy or time efficient is just the way people see it. No, like when people say a glass of water is half full or half empty, it's just how a person looks at it. Yeah, it's just how you can view it. However, I just think it's interesting to think about the fact that yeah, I mean, if you're able to very, like, consistently and accurately answer a specific question, or whatever, with uh a resource, very, very, as quickly or as efficiently as you would if you memorized it, then why would you be being taught that thing? It's just an interesting question, because you would think, like, yeah, you want humanity to be able to understand, like, math, and whatever, but there are things that over time we kind of realize, like, as an example, like, everyone however many years ago knew how to, like, light a fire, right? And a lot less people nowadays know how to, like, light a fire, because we don't really need to. Do I think it's good to know how to light a fire? Yeah, of course, it's great to know how to light a fire. But we don't need to know how to light a fire as, like, as much as we did need to 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago. So it's just, I think that the things that we need to know shifts over time, and I think that this will be the biggest by far shift of that space, I guess. I don't want doctors in charge of my life and well-being to be relying on a language model for my care. I mean, that's a valid concern, but I think that, imagine putting it like this. Uh, you're, imagine the collective knowledge of every doctor that has like ever existed being combined together and giving an answer to you know a question about your health, or looking at a x-ray and being able to know, oh, it's seen billions of x-ray pictures and can instantly answer a question about it that a doctor maybe couldn't. Right now, a doctor can obviously, you know a doctor can obviously, what's it called, like, be better for like humanization and better for care, and so on and so forth. And we're not at that point yet, but I do think that it's like a good thing. It's a good thing that we'll be able to have like more access, and doctors will be able to be more, uh, like, doctors will be better. Like, the best doctors will be even better because they'll be able to quickly research things. And a lot of doctors do research things. You might ask a doctor a question or come in, or whatever, and then they go and they do research about it. Or sometimes they do know right away, but other times they have to go and research, and then they'll be able to do that quicker and better, and whatever else. But my comment was on what you compared. You compared an artist using the bucket tool in our program to a kid who's using to do their assignment and quite literally cheating with AI. Well, no, I think it's more. I think it's more intricate. Like, I'm not commenting saying right now. I think that right now we're in a very interesting time where things are like quickly changing. I'm just saying that I think that the line of work will change rather than, like, I think the kid doing that as like right now in this moment is like, shouldn't do that, and I think that it is hurting their learning to do that. But I think that what needs to change is the learning, like what's being taught, and what's, what how the process is would be what changes. Because if you, like, just theoretically, in a world where you can instantly cheat on something and have, like, as instantly, instantly right away, depending on, it depends on what it is, obviously, but just basically the knowledge that you need, that is required um in order to accomplish something. What's important is being able to like accomplish the goal, right? Generally. Now, obviously, when you're talking about like art, or you're talking about creativity, creative things, it's different, because like the goal a lot of times is being creative, and so that's a whole different topic. But I'm talking about for things where, like math as an example, where it's like, yeah, obviously everyone should know math, but also, uh, if you can, like, even right now, like with calculator stuff, it's like you have to know how to like structure, a particular math problem, or whatever. But at the end of the day, what are you using math for, right? You're trying to accomplish something, and if you can accomplish that same thing with a lower level of knowledge, then it will become okay to have that lower level of knowledge in that field. Now you'll learn more about other things, or you maybe will be able to learn more advanced things, or even take it even further. Because you can study math for, you know 10 years and still have more to learn, because there's so much there's a ton of different fields. um but if you're like required to know less to accomplish more, then then people will just start learning more. Like, what you will learn will be different, but still more like the same amount, I guess, if that makes sense. It's like the kid, cheating on some test, or whatever, now is either one thing's gonna happen. Either one, that the thing he's cheating on is something that is important to know and will be important to know in the future, or an important skill to have, or whatever, and therefore we will find ways to prevent the cheating. Or it's not important anymore, and the times just haven't adapted to it, and the times will adapt, and then that kid won't be cheating on it, because the things that are being taught are things that either can't be cheated on, or the cheating's being like prevented, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's all very, very, like, especially now, it's super super nuanced and super like complicated. because we're in like the, it's like everything's happening right now, so been chatting for how long? Good amount of time. Let's see. I'm not gonna end just yet, but probably soon. I'm just trying to refresh. There we go. Off topic, but doesn't having caffeine at like 4 a.m. worse. Well, I'm not going to sleep right now, so yeah, having caffeine at 4 a.m. would worsen my sleep schedule. But I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to be up all day. So, what do you think about lower level understanding being crucial for building higher level understanding? Yeah, I think lower level understanding is crucial for building higher level understanding. I think that what I'm saying is that the what is the definition of lower level understanding will be higher, and what the definition of higher level understanding will be even higher. So, like, maybe eventually we won't consider it lower level understanding to understand that, like, I don't know a good example because I guess it's really hard to think of uh the future, um but like everything is just like moved up. So it's not that you don't need to have a lower level understanding, it's just that what we consider a lower level understanding will be a higher level understanding than what it is right now. And so we might just even not think it's important at all to know certain things that are low level because you can just do them or know them instantly with AI. Um, I don't know, I can't give a specific example. I wish I could, but I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. As a teacher, I need you to understand that learning is not straightforward. Yes, math is used for things, but math is also used to teach reasoning and logic. That is not as results based. We need to exercise our brain to develop it. Not everything's about an end result. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of intricacies and nuance, I guess, to why we learn things, how we learn them now. Um, I think there's a lot of things that are that even when I was learning something, I'm like, oh, why am I learning this? And it's like, well, I mean, it's incredibly useful to even just like developing your brain or whatever. Um, but I think that those things will change as well, like what they are, because we'll find a better understanding as well of like how our brain works and what are those things? What are those things? I think that right now, what those things are could be different. Obviously, they're what they are right now due to research and experience and whatever. But we have access to more information and more knowledge than we've ever had, and it's only getting more and better and bigger. And the school like process right now is the same as it was 100 years ago. Obviously, that's not entirely accurate. There are differences now, but generally speaking, is nuance your new favorite word? No, this is a nuanced conversation. What are you up to today? I'll be editing. I'll be editing. That's what I'll be doing is editing a video. Mm, 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 mm. Do you think that one day AI will find, say, a cure for cancer or color blindness? Yeah, 100%. I think AI already, again, machine learning, has already found a bunch of like has already made like medical advancements. Like we have I mean, most people just don't even know. Like they hear the bad and not the good. Like as an example, there's some company, I forget who it is, but that has been doing working on machine learning specifically for like gene sequences for a long time. Because essentially, if you give it all the gene sequences that we know of, and then try and have it predict the same way it works with language, but with gene sequences. It can, try and generate and find new gene sequences. And there's companies that have done that. And I don't remember when it was. I think it was maybe a couple of years ago or something. But they like got they were able to successfully have meet the standards of like the scientific uh, level of accuracy or whatever. And the number of like protein sequences or something that we're aware of has like literally times multi millions in the last couple of years because of it. And because of that, I think that's part. I think part some of that part was like how we did the COVID vaccine. I could be wrong on that, but and how we're doing a lot more. How there has been a lot more advances recently on vaccines and also um, just diseases and stuff in general. So yeah, I think definitely. How bad is your wrist hurt? It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt anymore, really. I mean, it hurts a little bit if I move it the wrong and stuff, but like it hurt pretty bad the first day or two, first couple days. But oops, I forgot it's on my phone. I'm like moving my phone away from me. I'm moving my mic closer, but it's my mic is on my phone. Hmm. How is that possible if we don't have the data for those brand new gene sequences? Sounds like imagining a new color, but yeah, overall, we know the prediction could come from false extrapolation. Yeah, it could. But we can confirm through like testing essentially, and like it is the same way that AI can create new like not new words, but like new like it can create a paragraph that's never been said before in that order, and that like it just knows like if you feed it all of the you know gene sequences that we know of, then it can find patterns, and it finds patterns in like okay, well based on everything that we've seen, you know, what would come next in this gene sequence, whatever would be this, and then we can confirm it. We can just kind of like test it and confirm it, and then, uh, yeah, that's essentially how it works. What are you clicking on your computer? I'm just clicking like refresh on mentions. Mm, 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 mm. How are things going to be in the future with Minecraft in your career? It's over. I'm just kidding. It's just a funny comment. Will we move closer to world peace and prosperity, or will this create an even larger division between countries competing in the world? I think in the short term, the negative, and I think in the long term, the positive. Because if you can have an abundance of knowledge and resources, potentially, if you can find ways to utilize that abundance of knowledge, um, then there's less to fight over. Like if we can, like if you if you have access to everything essentially, then like there's just less to fight over. But I think in the short term there'll be transition period where it's like it seems like, oh my god, like these people are gonna have access to everything and not us. And it's like, well, eventually everyone's gonna have access to everything. And so I think short term bad, long term good, as long as we make it through the short term bad. Um, that's my general assessment. um, why don't you want to open private? Why would I want to open it? It's private, right? In a few years, you're gonna be replaced by a robot. Yes, exactly. All right. Unless there's any more interesting technical questions that intrigue me, I'm gonna be ending in a second.
Share with the class. What's funny? I don't know. I just would probably read just like a random tweet and think it's funny. Does Fusion use any other AI stuff other than to learn coding languages? Uh, Fusion uses AI for detecting body parts, like like let's say a person, and detecting where your leg is and where your arm is and your hand is and whatever. And it's just machine learning. It's just essentially it's just seen a lot of images of people, and we told it, no, and I say we, but people, uh, trained it. Hey, this is and look at this picture, and this is where the head is. This is where the hands are. This is where this is, whatever. And then just did that with tons and tons and tons of pictures, and then um, now it can reasonably accurately, detect where hands and feet are just by having pictures. Did you use a lot of libraries and info for the computer vision Fusion uses, or did you compile the pictures and stuff for yourself? I mean, this is a company that, um, like I didn't make any of the, I didn't program any of the uh, AI detection model. Like that's it's just a model. Um, but I didn't do that. I did everything else. Is text to speech AI? Yes, text to speech is machine learning. I mean, it's again, it's not what you're thinking of probably when you say AI, but it is. It's the same thing. It's text to speech and speech to text translations like Google Translate and stuff. It's all AI. It's all the same. It's just we've just essentially all ChatGPT and stuff is it's just a different way of doing it, and also a like it's introducing like creativity and stuff. But all it is, the creativity is pretty much just like randomness. But yeah, it is the same. Like you'd be surprised. There's a lot. It's the machine learning is like basically everywhere. People just don't know that, I guess. And it is to a there is like a lesser. It is different for sure. There's a difference, but it's less different than people would think. What's the difference between machine learning and AI slash an LLM? I mean, it's complex. Honestly, I don't know the exact specific answer, but my understanding is essentially that I mean they're basically the same thing, but basic like machine learning or like a neural network or something, um, it typically might have like less layers in a way. So, like as an example, if you're doing a translation, you don't. Yes, it could be better with context, but there's usually like a right answer. Like so as an example, if you're doing a math equation, there's like a kind of a right and wrong answer. Um, Whereas if you're w- doing something that's more nuanced, then like it could vary a lot based on context. So like machine learning is you're training, so you're giving something tons of data to try and have it figure out the right answer, and then it just picks the right answer. Whereas with an LLM, it's being transformed more to figure out the context of what it's trying to do, and then you're getting a more random response or more random results to try and introduce like creativity. That's a very like low level example, but to me that's the general difference. They're both still trained on a large amount of data. They're both still, they both still like use energy, and they both still, um, try and predict a result based on past training. But they just essentially are trying to accomplish different things. And then also, we just have gotten better, and like an LLM is just better than. Uh, I mean, I think an LLM is technically just machine learning as well, but I just mean what we know, what we're referring to as like machine learning or uh, like a neural network is like a lower level, a less intelligent AI kind of. But what would you consider a wasteful use of generative AI? Um, I don't know. That's a good question. Obviously, most of what I've spoken about today isn't.
isn't that related to like generative AI, because it still works the same. Like if you're making an image, like as an example, if you're generating an image, um, like when I talked about before how it's like tokenizing your words, like it's breaking your words down into quote unquote tokens. It does the same thing with an image. Like it will just take parts of an image and then break it down into tokens, and then it just is provided with tons of images, and then it generates every next, like, let's say imagine it as pixels, but it's not actually pixels. So instead of there being words, it provides it with pixels, kind of, you know? And then it's just predicting what the next pixel will be. And so that's why if like with ChatGPT's new thing or whatever, if you tell it like an art style, it can kind of make a similar looking art piece of that style or whatever, because it's kind of randomly, it's being, okay, what do I think should come next here? And then it's randomly picking something out of the top, whatever's from it. Um, I think that uh a useful use case for it is like as an example, if you don't know what you want for something, like you don't know how you want something to look, you can, you know generate an image that that of like an example image, and then be like, oh, okay, no, I wouldn't want it to look like that. I'd try again, and then have one that you go, okay, yeah, this is, this sucks, but like kind of. And then have an artist that you're like, hey, here's an example. I don't know exactly what I want, but I want me, whatever. um which could make somebody, I don't know, more confident, maybe. Like, let's say someone that's doesn't have much money, like a smaller creator or something. Like, I'll give a good example of what I think is an interesting way to use uh, generative AI that isn't um, like harmful, I guess, from my personal perspective. Is like, in that case, like if you're a small creator and you can't afford, like you're not going to be able to, if you are going to reach out to a, like you're just not going to reach out to an artist because you're not sure what you want, you don't know anything, so you're either just going to, one, not interact with an artist, or you're, two, not going to, you're just going to use like a crappy thumbnail. If you can have the confidence of generating an example thumbnail or whatever, you're not using that thumbnail as your actual thumbnail, but you're using it as an example, or as a, oh yeah, wait, I should go try and make something similar to that, or, you know what, I actually don't like how that looks. Then you can maybe be more confident, I guess, before approaching an artist. Like, okay, yeah, I think I'm going to get something that I want, and therefore I'm more confident to spend money on an artist. Now, again, most people aren't using it like this, but I think that's the most, in my mind, the most useful way right now that it can be used. Um, which I think that's cool, and I think that uh, it's uh, there are places where it can be valuable. But I also think that right now, the way that things are structured, the laws and everything need to catch up. Um, and I'm not sure that corporations and stuff want them to, but they definitely do need to. And that's very bad. I approach an artist with a generative AI image, never. I'm saying, like, as an example, um, let's say I'm going in game, right? Like, this is an example, not for necessarily approaching it. You're not sending an AI image. I'm saying, like, I'm making a Minecraft thumbnail, right? Like, I'll just give you an example. My last video, right? That thumbnail is just made in Minecraft, right? Like, it's literally, or, okay, not my last video, the X-ray hacker versus like fly hacker, right? Um, that's just like made in Minecraft. Like, I went into Minecraft, and then I took screenshots, and then I went in Photoshop, and then it's text, and like none of that is like AI generated, right? But before I did anything, I'm sitting there going, okay, what do I want? Like, essentially, what do I want to do for a thumbnail in this video? I have no idea. Do I want to? I think I have a general idea. I want to have like maybe X-ray hacker on the left. I want to have a fly hacker on the right. Okay, well, I think I want to do a person in a mine, and I want to do someone in plains biome. But like, maybe I don't. And if I'm going to go spend an hour in game setting up, character poses and, whatever, right? Or you could have a generated image that you reference and go, oh, yeah, actually, okay, yeah, I think I would want to do something like that. And then be able to hop in game and do it. That's like an example, I guess, of what I'm talking about. But I can see why that would be in it's like a it's a complex topic. I agree with the laws, but it feels pretty insulting to approach an artist with generated AI picture. Yeah, no, I'm not I guess I'm not sure how exactly I worded it, but I mean more about like your own perception of like what you like as a non-artist, if you like as an example, it's similar to like as an example of me going into like this is something I used to do for my channel, right? Like a long time ago, going into paint and like drawing stick figure examples for myself of like, okay, what if I wanted to do a thumbnail like this where I have myself, there's like a character standing here and there's a character standing there and whatever. um uh you can do that, but you can also do that at a higher level too. My mom just mocked you for clearing your throat. Tell her off. What is she mocking? She's like, oh my god, he cleared his throat. Here, I'll drink more water, then I'll clear my throat less. After I just drank, I cleared my throat again. Maybe time sitting. Fine, I'll sit up, mom. Honestly, I don't want AI to reach music. Obviously, it could have already. I mean, it has. It has. I mean, even like autotune, like as an example of like machine learning for the more advanced autotunes that have been around for a long time. Yeah, I think when you're approaching talking about like generative AI, uh, it's it's like it's a slippery slope, and I think it's a very it would be especially talking with you guys obviously because a lot of you guys are artists. It's a very like emotional and uh like complex. And right now, a lot of companies, even for non-generative AI, but especially for generative AI, like I said, way earlier, are like not asking for permission, but asking for forgiveness, which I think is that was one of the first things I said, which is a terrible approach. And I think the laws, obviously, in regards to copyrights and intellectual property, and my voice is going crazy, intellectual property and etc. We need to catch up to how things are because it's unfair, and I think that a lot of artists and not even just artists, I mean anybody, like even like I mean I'm not an artist, but I've my thumbnails and stuff obviously are guaranteed being used in the training of AI models and for generative art and generative uh, whatever. And that's not it's not fair to have anybody have their work used to then be without any form of compensation or whatever. Um, so I'm not. It's a nuanced conversation. Talk about any use cases where something the like ethics behind uh, the ethics behind the training of something is an interesting topic because even like Adobe will claim like, oh well, we use like they use only art or or pictures or whatever in their training that's from that where they have permission or whatever. But it's an interesting thing where like it's automatic. I think like whenever you upload on Adobe stock or whatever, it's automatically like checkboxed that it can be used unless you like go in and don't check it. I mean, maybe I don't want to spread misinformation. Maybe that's not true, but I'm pretty sure that was the case at least at some point. Uh, And so it's interesting the place that we're in terms of like intellectual property and copyright when related to generative AI. 'Cause I mean, it's all the same thing. It's just that with like creativity as well, obviously it feels a lot worse because uh, there's not like a right answer. So, and by that I mean there's not a right like if you give somebody a question like if you ask two what's 2 plus 2, there's a right answer. But if you ask draw me a whatever, there's not a right answer. And so it feels more like, oh well, you're using. I feel like there's a point in this conversation where it's better to just end it before people get mad over it. I don't think so. I think it's really important, honestly. Like, I feel like even if like something I would were to say would be frustrating for like somebody or somebody would have a problem with it, like then I think it's healthy to have that have those discussions because I have a very like especially specifically on this topic, it's interesting because like I love artists. I have a lot of respect for artists. I think artists are the backbone to our community, and I think that, a lot of communities online. I'm a creative person. I love expressing creativity, and obviously I have I have a lot of care and love and appreciation, and so I think it's important to have conversation, even if they're tough. It's important to have conversations because if you don't have conversations, then like I said way earlier on, like I do think that in with the current landscape, with not having conversations about this stuff, that um, especially with stuff like this, that like the artists are going to be boned. They are getting boned and will be. It will continue. But the more conversation that there is, the more likely that there will be resolutions that uh, I don't know are the best that there can be because you're not like a good example is like if I'm not saying this is I'm not saying this is the case, but in a world, just imagine a world where you can go and type into ChatGPT or whatever and generate an image that the is better or exactly what or good enough for what you're envisioning or whatever for whatever you're working on, right? Now, you can try and convince anybody, regardless of who they are, to go, oh, go pay an artist to do that, right? But for something where if it's just somebody random, they weren't going to go pay an artist, and they're able to do that, and they're able to do that legally, right? And they're able to do that with no repercussions, and they're able to, and it's and they're saving money and blah blah. Like they're going to do it no matter what. Um, and so not everybody, obviously, but the majority of people, and that's obviously how the world works in terms of eat or get eaten, whatever. And so with that being the case, like what is the like what is the what's the best way to avoid that? I guess like how like what are the I think that's probably why a lot of people are scared of it, especially because obviously right now it's not that's not the case. You can't go and generate art with ChatGPT that's better than like artists. Um, but it's just an interesting it's this interesting line of thought. I think it will change a lot. I think that with a lot of related AI tools, um, with a lot of like AI related tools, your I just lost my train of thought completely. What was I going to say? With a lot of AI related tools, oh, they may seem like replacements or something, but they will end up being used as tools, right? So genuinely, I want to hear artists' thoughts on this, right? So I saw some artists that or some video from an artist I think that talked about this, and I'm just genuinely curious. So imagine you have an AI model yourself, and you provided it. The only data that it has is, let's say you're working on like a movie or an animation or something, right? And the only and you provided it with all of the images that you had drawn, right? Of I don't know, of just whatever the movie is. So let's say it's like it's I don't know, a Spider-Man or whatever. And then your art style. So you decide an art style, you work, you spend so long, making the art for it, and you make, and let's say, I don't know, even 50% or 30% or whatever, and then you don't fill in the animations, right? It's like you had, or maybe not animations, but like in between frames. Like there's like frames, you have 5 separate frames or whatever, and in between each one, like it's a walking or something, someone walking, and you have the starter frame of someone like starting to step, and then you have the ending frame, the second, half second later of the person finishing the step or whatever, and it's all your own art. And then because it's been trained on your art, you use it to generate the in between frames, right? I mean, it's just using the exact frames from before, but then generating steps in between. Like how is that? Like, what is that? Is that's still something that you're thinking in your mind is, as an example? Because obviously you could have gone through and moved someone's foot and whatever. So I think that's the biggest, the direction that things are heading, or at least will be very quickly, is that um artists, not just artists, in every field. I think the same way that it's impacting, like, let's say, developers and coders, and which obviously I'm a developer, and impacting other jobs, where I guess I'm just worried that people that uh, I don't know how to, like, people that are people that don't utilize tools can be left behind by people that do. Um, and so I think that's an interesting, like, it's just an interesting level of thinking. Like, I'm just thinking, like, there's obviously AI is impacting everybody's lives and will be for the next, well, for the rest of our lives. But I just mean, like, right now it's happening more and more and more. So it's just interesting, thinking about, what are the steps to ethically utilize certain tools, right? That are being developed regardless, right? And I think that's the way that I think that people should be trying to think more. But again, I am coming from the position of seeing the impact it's had on, like, other fields, even like the software development field and stuff, and just knowing, like, it's coming, it's gonna hit very hard. It may not be, perfect now. It may not be even great right now, but eventually it will be. And obviously you don't want to sap, like, the creativity and the I don't know, the heart from, like, we don't, I don't want the internet to just be like fucking all AI generated art. That would suck. So how can we? It's like, knowing what's coming. What's the strategy, behind not having, not losing that heart and not losing that soul behind it, and so on and so forth. So, but anyway, I think it's interesting. It's good. It's interesting conversations to be had, but. Animator here. I think it's really efficient and helpful for animators using tools like AI to help us adapt. It'll help push forward without taking away animators' ability to create. Yeah, I think genuinely that's going to happen for a lot of stuff, right? I think that right now this is a very contrary, like, thing. Like, I don't know. It's very contrary right now to think that AI tools will be involved largely with, art in the future. And I don't mean literally, oh well, artists are just going to become prompters. They're just going to type out, blah 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 blah, whatever. No. But when I'm just thinking from, like, the world runs on money, and people making use of their time, as well, is that there's anything that can be automated, like, will be. And so I think that there will be ways like that example that I just gave, for probably every creative field, that isn't just sapping the creativity, um, out of it, I guess. But I think it's
It's just a really intriguing. It's intriguing. I get the whole like some people were saying like something feels lazy. And it's like I understand that, but I have my thought behind specifically like the laziness behind something is that if you can accomplish something, like I'm talking about, like this is going back to like the dawn of time. If you can accomplish something in a, quicker and better, but like it actually takes you less time or whatever, like that's not being lazy, right? Like using a calculator to do a math problem instead of writing it down, like are you being lazy? I mean, I guess maybe technically, but like obviously 99% of the time you're going to use the calculator unless like, you have to for some reason to write it down. And that same example applies to like a lot of so many different things. I think the same thing applies to a lot of uh AI tool like acceptance, I guess, because it's like, yeah, I mean, are you being lazy? It's like, yeah, I mean, you're being lazy if instead of Googling yourself right now and searching something that's intricate and doing multiple Google search and going to read the articles and whatever, if you just ask, you know, a model to like summarize it or something, like, yeah, you're being lazy, but like in that example, is it a bad thing? Like, I mean, probably not if you're accomplishing the same goal, but. And I'm generalizing as well. Like I'm not talking about like art when I'm saying that. I'm just talking about generally speaking. As someone studying graphic design, there are so many useful tools in Photoshop. They use AI to make things go quicker. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the thing is that there's a lot of machine learning tools as well that are AI that are used on the daily, by artists whether it be in Photoshop or literally on just like tablets. Like there's certain you'd have to look through feature lists and stuff, but stuff that has been around for a really long time. But it is very different using a tool like a paint bucket or whatever versus actually using like a literally generating a picture or something. It's obviously extremely different, but there is like there is some uh complexity to it when you think about the fact that like, yeah, you're choosing the color red and then you're saying you want the whole thing filled in, but you're not individually filling in every pixel with like the color red. And I think it's a similar principle. It's just depends on what level. And I think there is like a level. There's levels that go too far, and there's levels that are fine. But I don't think there's any one right answer to all this, which is part of the reason it's such a complex conversation. Yeah, it is. It's really, but I feel like it is important to have because I feel like it's just it's important in general. But yeah, I agree. It's complex. I think it's important. Did I steal your AirPods? No. How would I have stolen your AirPods? Mm-mm-mm. If I only provided it with my own art, how would it generate something that I hadn't drawn at all yet? I don't think this would work without filling in the gaps of someone else's imagery. So that's where it gets really interesting because as of right now, yes, that's true. But there's two interesting. I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts on. There's two interesting uh, things with that. One is with you can with like synthetic data with human approval. So like as an example, in the future, I'm sure there could be a process that works like this. Like you would give it uh, all of your art, right? For a specific topic or whatever. Or like I'm working on this movie, and so you provide it with that, and then it would generate a million images itself off of those, right? Now, a lot of them are going to be really bad,
but you would just go through like a slideshow and you go yes, no, it'd be like, you're like playing Tinder or whatever. You're going no, yes, no, yes, no, swipe, swipe no, and going through like, oh, this one sucks, this one's good, whatever. Um, right, with it only literally only using your art until eventually you have a better catalog. And then also as an artist, I'm sure you've made art for a long time. You've maybe the more and more art that you've made, you have more and more and more and more and more and more and more like examples of art, I guess. And so it doesn't need as much as you would think, like as much data as you would think to, especially if you're trying to do a specific style. Now, the thing is, if you're trying to do a different style, well, then yeah, it doesn't have any information on that. But even with, thousands of images or something from a very specific style, um, of art and a basic understanding of like, you know, the world or whatever, which is just like from text and etc. You could generate stuff that uh, w- would be new, would be something that you hadn't drawn yet. So that's the first thing, which I guess I'd be interested in your like on that's not a thing that exists now, but that it will be something. I'm telling you that will happen in the future. So which is why it's just an interesting like thought. The second thing is when talking about without filling the gaps with someone else's imagery. Um, as of right now, for if you're using like a ChatGPT or something, yeah, that's why they're in like lawsuits and stuff. But where like when you're drawing, right? Um, obviously you're using all of your experiences, and like I used to run into this problem with like when I was like writing, right? When I was writing, when I was like 16 and I was writing a book, sometimes I would like doubt myself in terms of like, wait, am I like, like essentially like, am I, is this entirely my, idea, or like, am I mixing in from all the books that I've read? And I loved that they did this, and I'm not doing that, but I'm inspired by that. And I'm making kind of a collection of, I'm making a collection, I'm using the collection of my reading and everything that I've read and all the stories that I liked, and I'm writing something similar to, Alex Rider, or whatever, or to Percy Jackson, or whatever. And I would that would put like imposter syndrome like down in my mind, like oh my god, wait, I'm just like ripping this off, or whatever. But like I know I'm not. I'm being inspired by something and utilizing the fact that I know what these things are. And on top of that, obviously, when I'm writing, I'm also thinking I'm using all of my knowledge of like English, and I'm using all of my experiences in my personal life and the things that I've gone through, and whatever. And when you're talking about uh, like if I use writing as an example for that, if you're talking about like an AI generating writing, it's doing the same thing, just with not your own like stuff, obviously, which is why it's bad. But if you were like, let's say, like, people will say, "Oh yeah, go ahead and like take all my stuff," or go ahead and or something's in public domain, or whatever. And it just has an AI that's trained on just a general understanding. So it's not like it's going and ripping everyone's stuff or whatever. It's like you can submit to it if you want. You go upload your website or whatever. Um, I'm assuming that you probably feel the same way about that, even though that's like the ethical like quote unquote approach, because it still would feel like, oh, you're taking the lazy approach, you're taking away the creativity, and so on and so forth, right? um and that's an interesting thought of like why, basically, what is the, I don't know, like what is what's the word I'm looking for, where, I guess I'm looking at it as like a plane, like, and by a plane I mean like a line, that eventually will converge with, as they minimize the amount of data, I guess, that you need to make something of quality. Um, and I think that once that like amount of data converges with the quality, that there'll be a really interesting like turning point, I guess. Um, and I think that that's the discussion behind it, I guess. I'm curious how it would draw a brontosaurus. So I've never drawn a dinosaur, for example. How would I know what a brontosaurus looks like? Like that's part I don't understand yet. If a tool could do that using only my art and no other artist's art, I would be cautiously intrigued. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously it couldn't. If it doesn't know what something is, it can't do anything. But that's why the example that I gave was like, okay, you already have like if you've already if you've already drawn somebody stepping or whatever or walking, and maybe you've done that 100 times. You've drawn people walking 100 times, and like and then it's trained in a way where it knows. Okay, it doesn't even necessarily need to know that uh, uh, you don't need to tell it kind of what walking is. It can maybe piece it together by seeing completed projects you've done in the past, right? And they're like, oh, this is walking. And so I'm also just, I guess that the example that I gave before was like generative fill or something, um, which isn't which isn't the same as like purely generative because it's just like it's predicting the next image. It's not like trying to make like you're not telling it, hey, add a dinosaur. You're just like finish this essentially. Um, and so it's different, I guess. But yeah, obviously it can't. If you haven't, AI is not like just the super intelligent. Like it can't just be like, oh wait, yeah, I've never heard what a or seen what a dinosaur is, so I can generate a dinosaur. But what it's getting better at is it's getting better at with less data producing quality results, and that's the interesting part. Is like right now, like as an example, with using nobody else's information, I can go take my Minecraft. This is something that I have done, take my Minecraft logs, right, and go and provide it with like my Minecraft logs, my chat history, my command history, whatever, just from my own like logs, and then I could ask it. I could have only off of that training data. I could ask it a question running on my own local PC about something. Just tell me something about myself, or you know, I don't know something. Or especially if it was that probably wouldn't have a great result, but a more specific question, would if I was asking about a specific date and time or what was I doing on Friday or whatever, it would be able to. And I think that that's something that obviously even a couple of years ago would have been impossible, but now is very possible. I think that with everything that's the biggest advances that are happening are they're getting like the models are getting like smaller and smaller and smaller and better and taking and less requiring less data as well. um so it's interesting. I think that that's where I think the biggest thing is it will be a tool. I think that overall it's going to be used as a tool more than people think. I think that the best people in every single category, even creative ones, will be utilizing uh AI as a tool, like wherever they can, you know, in the same way that you would you know in the past use Googling as a research when you're doing a research paper or whatever, but you wouldn't just copy and paste from Google, but you'd use Google to figure something out and then fill in the blanks or whatever. So I think it will be similar. Why are you clicking your mouse? Well, when I'm clicking my mouse, I'm just refreshing the mentions thing. So I'm just refreshing mentions. I'm thinking like, what if you input photos you take yourself with your own camera and transfer that? Yeah, I think that's kind of like how, like as an example with like fusion, like how kind of how you train something to detect like body parts is you show it a picture of a person, and then you just say like this is a person and you outline the person or whatever, and this isn't, and you just do that over and over and over and over again to as many pictures as possible. And then eventually, and then you can be more intricate. You can label this as a hand and this is a finger and this is whatever. And then it kind of just like learns pattern in an image to know kind of what that is. Like, oh well, yeah, this it usually generally like looks like this to be a person, or a hand or a whatever. And so they're kind of applying the same. It's similar, but it's obviously then you're taking that a step further and you're using that to generate like an image versus just tell you what something in an image is. So it's just like it's kind of like the same process, just extra steps. you know? CAPTCHA essentially. Yeah, I mean, CAPTCHA is like training AI. That's what CAPTCHA was used for. That was like literally the purpose was like human because you need human labeling essentially to like verify the quality of an AI and like how do you get masked that? Well, CAPTCHA because then everyone's what is a car and you click the car and then you know sometimes there'll be you have inaccurate stuff, but generally you provide it with like good answers. So surely you're gonna run out about things till the app out soon. Yeah, I'll end soon. I mean, you can mass produce a lot of things, but with the things with the most value are the ones made by the artists who took the time to learn the skills to make whatever item may be. Their quality of work will always be better than things made the easy way. Yeah, 100 million trillion infinite percent. Yes. Um, I think that there's just interesting thought to be made about like the times, right? Because like I don't know, before like digital art, like when it was only physical art, and you had to, like you and I don't know, like when you literally needed a like let's even just say before like pens and stuff were invented, right? And you, if you were an artist, you had to have, a paintbrush, and you had to have like a canvas, and you had these different things. Then whenever paper came around and pens came around, and there I guarantee that there was like is there, and it's why we have so much respect, I guess, for like uh, art from the past as well. Looking back on art from earlier times or art from artists a long time ago. But we still at the same time have like as tools came along, you adapted to them. And so I think that that's gonna something there's gonna be some adjustments related to AI. There's gonna be some adjustments related to AI because it's gonna be unavoidable. I just don't know what those adjustments will be, I guess. And I think that they will be like obviously somebody put it in the replies as well, but like yeah, I think consent in terms of using people's arts is extremely important. um Not gonna lie, I'm half asleep and I have no idea what you're saying. Yeah, go to sleep. Bro's voice is going crazy. Yeah, I know. I don't know why. Maybe I just need to clear my throat big or something. I don't see a reality where people aren't massively exploited through this unless there are some heavy regulations and laws in place. No, I I 100% agree, but I think I guess maybe this is a negative like sentiment, but I think the problem is that it's already happened. Like a lot of people don't realize like they have been like you if you're an artist, you've been exploited. You have already right now been exploited. Like 100% your art's been stolen and put into training data, right? Like that's happened. There's no way it hasn't, right? And so in my mind it's like how can we make it right? Because I feel like it's it's already happened and it's going to continue happening, and it's really hard to like stop. Like how can we stop that? It's really hard to stop it. Um, and I think that it's with everything else as well. It's like I think that that's where we need to implement laws in relation to it, but we also need to implement laws in relation to like compensation, like back pay, and like I don't know, like ways to compensate people who had their art used and whatever as well. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of something that I came in with as well. Is I think that it's it's like that's already happened, I guess. I think that yeah, it can get worse, and but I think that what's happening now is like the data's already been collected. Like I don't know if you guys know this, but most of the data in like models like ChatGPT, like ChatGPT's most recent released model has training data from 2023. Maybe it was even 2022. Like they have not trained it on new data in multiple years. They're getting better at how to use that, right? They're getting better at how to use the training data. It's like all the images and whatever from like all the art and everything. It's already been like collected. Like it's already happened. Um, it's just it's just getting more and more and more and more and more efficient at like utilizing the data that it has, like for text, but also for images and stuff as well. So I'm not trying to like scare anybody or whatever, but like it is going to get better and it's going to get it's going to get better and more efficient and uh, whatever. Um, but uh, but yeah, so I guess I'm also talking about like what is the what is the future to what is the future to make it right, because I feel like it's in my mind it's pretty unavoidable that one has already happened, and two that it's going to continue to be quote unquote worse, because it's just that the data is already there. It's just being like refined, and things are now it's kind of in like the process of developers and whatever, making it like better. Um, and I think that in every other way that in a lot of other ways that AI is used, it'll be really good for the world, like in cancer research and in a lot of ton of different ways. Um, and so I think that interesting to think about. Like, it is like a kind of unavoidable. It's like an unavoidable thing that I think in the again, which is what I've said multiple times. Like it's like a negative short term and a positive long term. But we need. That's why I've pitched for like universal basic income. That's not on the artist side, but that's on other like relative jobs and stuff. And then I think that we definitely should have um like better, stricter like IP laws and stuff, especially in relation to training data. I think that we need, there needs to be like back pay and like compensation, and that might come through lawsuits or whatnot. I don't know. Um, and then there needs to be more of a uh, what's it called, like a more of a push for like consent when it comes to uh, training data, and especially when it comes to creative training data like art and writing and so on and so forth. Um, But all of that being said, I do think that even on top of that, it's important in my mind as a creative, as someone who I do software development, I do writing, um, I do very minimum art, but I do make help make my own thumbnails and do uh, you know my own stupid logos and whatever. But and so I think that because of that, it's also important to recognize, like, okay, sometimes you can be in a bad situation. How can you, whether you're an artist or a creative or whatever, how can you make sure that it's not like um, I don't know how to say, like, it's not the end of the world, but I don't mean that in a like a it's not the end of the world. I mean that in like a what is the way you can put yourself in the best position to be happy and successful, and not let I don't know, companies and shit just take advantage of people and whatever, without feeling hopeless or feeling like, which, maybe I'm sure a lot of you have felt like that, but anyway, I don't know if that makes sense completely, but yeah, that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. I think it's fun to talk about. Um, Obviously, I know I'm very like hopeful and excited for the future in general. For not just speaking as well for my own content creation and the future of like Dream and whatever, but also just the future of everybody. And I think that I love technology, and it's really interesting to talk about. So, and I think that the world's in an interesting spot with where technology's at right now. I think that it's nice to have these conversations, um, because I feel like there's a lot to learn and find understanding and so on and so forth. But either way, talk to you guys later. Thanks for coming. Bye bye.
Hello? There we go. Sorry, guys. I've never done it on computer before. I think it's working now, right? I've never done a space on my computer because you used to not be able to do it, but then now you can, which is epic because I like that. Right, can I be I just wanna make sure I can make sure I can be heard before I keep talking. Okay, alright, cool. Yay, I can be heard. Perfect. What is up? I wish, to be fair, does are there, like is there, like, a chat for I wish there was, like, a chat for Spaces like there's a, chat for, like this I'm putting over here. I'm putting this here. Okay. Now I should be good. Anyway, I'm glad I can be on computer now because now I don't mind doing these, I guess I can do it more if I can do it on my computer because then I don't have to, like, you know, I don't know. I'm, like, able to do it when I'm sitting at my computer as well. Silence. Okay, so am I muted? I think I see my mic lighting up, so I think I'm good. I'm muted? How? What am I muted? Am I muted? Am I speaking? God, I thought my stuff was lighting up. Now I'm confusing myself. Okay. Um, hello? Refresh my mentions. I Twitter's not working for me. Okay, so no one can hear me. Uh, hello? It looks good on my end. It's like lighting up on my end. Do I need to toggle noise suppression, maybe? Allow while visiting the site? Hello? I've already allowed it. I wish I had a live chat so I could like test things and see. Maybe like you guys can like put your hand up or something or like do an emoji. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, do like an emoji. I don't know. Like a good emoji, like a thumbs up or like something. Mm, I don't see any. Can I actually not be heard? Oh, okay. Okay, there's thumbs up. Okay. Just like delayed or something? Hearts, thumbs ups. Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Cool. I just clicked pop out. You guys can still hear me. I'm gonna refresh my mentions again. Why is my mentions why are my mentions not refreshing? I hate it. I'm like being like rate limited. Um, okay. I think I'm good. All right. Anyway, wait. Okay, maybe I just can't pop it out. I think that's what's happening. I can't click pop out window. Um okay. I think that's what's happening. Okay, I'm not clicking pop out. I think if I click pop out window, it doesn't work. It's like a Twitter bug, I'm guessing. But you can hear me now, right? It's good now, right? Yes. I'm heard now. I'm just gonna leave. I'm not touching the window. If I'm heard now, then I'm not touching the window. I assume I'm heard now, but maybe I'm not. It looks like my mic's lighting up. I refreshed it. The correct mic is selected. I got a thumbs up. Looks good to me. Okay. All right. Well, uh, can I refresh my mentions or does it not want to let me? Maybe I can go here, go to newest or something. Stop clicking the pop-up window. Okay, I stopped. I stopped. Look, I don't know how it works. How am I supposed to know how it works? Um, but I'm definitely being heard right now, right? Yes, I'm. This is unbearable. What's happening? Ends after 5 seconds. Have to keep rejoining. What? Huh? All right, let me see. Let me check my phone. I wanted to do it on my computer though, because it's much more comfortable. It's like it's good or the space keeps ending. Weird. Maybe it's just bugged on computer. Okay, fine. Fine. I'll go live from my phone, I guess. Like I'll go on a space on my phone. I'm gonna end this one.